Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Truth and Transparency, Idaho4 episode. Today is the third anniversary of November 13th, 2022. Also, we got news last night, or at least I did for the first time, that a creator that has basically for the past 3 years devoted his time and attention to the Idaho4 case had passed away. Tommy Jude. I had the privilege of being interviewed, if you want to call it that. We got to shoot the shit on a broadcast. And so as much as today's episode is dedicated to the third year anniversary of November 13th, 2022, I also want to dedicate this episode for Tommy Jude. He's got a front seat now, front row to, he was the first one. He knows everything now. But I believe he's up in heaven. He'll be looking down. So anybody that was joining me last night, that's why I canceled my live. Yeah. I wasn't much for entertaining or talking about anything. But today, we're going to recap what has gone on over the past 3 years. I'm going to throw in some timeline, what I think are bombs. But here I want to start with a video that I made. It's episode 6 of my Red Flag project. December 1st, this clip is from, as well as December 1st was the day that Dylan Mortensen was interviewed.
Did the bedroom doors of the...
All right, so I want to talk really quick. December 1st, Dylan Mortensen was interviewed, and it was not by the Idaho State Police. It was not by the Moscow Police Department. They may have, maybe a representative would have been there, not sure yet. But December 1st, the FBI, that would have been all about the FBI with that interview. There is no report that the Idaho State Police or the Moscow Police Department interviewed Dylan that day. And we don't have the FBI files yet. But on that day, what was happening on that day, Dylan's being interviewed on December 1st. This is put out by Inside Edition. And so the whole purpose of episode 6 here that I did with my Red Flag project is to point out where truly this misinformation was always coming from.
4 murdered University of Idaho students have electronic locks like this. A former tenant posted this photo and says all 6 bedrooms had combination locks. It's believed the students had a lock on the door similar to this. This is a keypad lock, and I'm
truly not sure how mainstream media got it wrong, but there were no locks, padded locks on any of the doors of any of the bedrooms, and that had been known for quite some time.
Now, Kara, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
This is the interview that Ashley Banfield does with Xana's mother, December 1st, and then she broadcast bits and pieces on December 2nd and December 3rd, and then a little bit.
There is a mysterious sort of 4-hour and 45-minute block of time that's unaccounted for by the police timeline. The police say that your daughter Xana and her boyfriend Ethan were at the Sigma Chi house from 8 until 9 p.m., but then they don't have any information on where they were from 9 p.m. till 1:45 a.m. Do you know anything about that from either your information from the police? Or
actually, what we do know now is that the gap of time that they don't have is not 9 to 1:45. Okay, it is, the gap is, there's a picture of Xana that somebody turned over at 12:15. Okay. And they were at the Sigma Chi house. You can see the background. That's what it's from at 12:15 a.m. So the unaccounted time is basically from 12:15 a.m. until 4:30 a.m. And that's that 4 hours. So I could tell that Ashley Banfield has sources. People have sources. They're getting it. But this game of telephone that people play, or whether they just want to run with whatever, but the gap of time there was, okay, there was this gap of time, but it was not from 9 to 1:45. This gap of time was from 12:15 until, I mean, truly is for the win. 12:15 a.m. until 11:56 a.m. when 911 was called. But well, for argument's sake, 12:15 a.m. until 4:30. Remember, Dylan nor Bethany said that they didn't hear Xana and Ethan come home and they didn't see them.
Or Ethan's family or anybody?
I may be candid in saying this, but I think that they were at a bar.
And where do you get that information from? Did someone tell you that they'd gone from the Sigma Chi house to a bar before they ended up home?
That's what their father conveyed to me, that he thought that they were at the bar that night. So, yeah, I mean, that's what college kids do on the weekends. So.
But you don't know for sure that they left the Sigma Chi house, went to a bar.
This would make perfect sense as to why MPD kept this hush hush and why Jeff told people that Xana stayed in and got pizza, because he was told not to release this information to the public because Ethan and Xana were, yes, underage, and then being out in the bars.
On social media anymore without being some kind of weird stalker. So that wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that that's what it was, though. I will be honest with you. I think it's closer than that. I think it's deeper than that. I think I think they have information that they're not giving us, and it's real fishy. That's what I will say.
When you say you think it goes deeper than that, what do you mean?
I mean, I think it was somebody closer than a stalker, and I don't know who. I'm not gonna specify anything like that. I'm just going to say I think that it's somebody, you know, and I think that it. Somebody, you know, and I think possibly they may have trusted. That's the only thing I can think of, because how could something like this happen so quickly, so quietly, so without any answer, unless it was somebody super close to them? You know what I mean?
Do you think the person who did this had been in that house before?
I think they knew them. I think they may have even been friends with them. I think it had to have been somebody close to them.
All right, something I want to read to you guys. On 12/3, so it would be right after this aired, on 12/3, on December 3rd, 2022, at about 5:20 p.m., Idaho State Police returned back to 1122 King Road, and this would be Jeff Talbot returned back with Hugh Powell. So let me back all the way up and say that this report was wrote on January 20th, 2023. Okay. But on December 3rd, 2022, Idaho State Police Detective Hugh Powell returned to the crime scene for further crime scene processing and evidence collection. And I thought this was interesting because Detective Hugh Powell, every time that house was reopened to do anything with the crime scene, Jeffrey Talbot was there always. So I don't know, maybe he was on vacation and it was a planned vacation. Have no idea, but it was interesting when I went back and looked at this date here on December 3rd. And now check this out. Hugh Powell returned to the crime scene for further crime scene processing and evidence collection. All items collected for evidence were turned over to MPD. Now on December 3rd of 2022, it was at 5:20 at night, which at that time it would have been super dark. Please remember that. At 5:20 in Idaho in December, it's really, really dark. And so it was him, Detective Jake Schwecke, and Detective Ryan O'Hara. Those three went in and took an empty Keystone light can in the stairway between the first and second floor. They took the black JanSport backpack located on the living room floor. They took the empty Keystone light can located on top of the vanity in Bethany's room. And then they took the open full Keystone can located on the top of the vanity along the south wall of the first floor, east bedroom. And then at about 5:50, they locked the door. And then it says that I transported the items collected to the Moscow Police Department and turned the items over to MPD evidence technician Tim Smallridge. Well, on December 3rd of 2022, it was a Saturday. Okay. I went and looked then at the evidence items when they were being taken in. And something that I noted was nothing came in on December 3rd. There's items that came in on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. We can't get to any type of item that is listed here in the pictures that they have here in this report until December 12th. So again, Hugh Powell, Jake Schwecke, and Ryan O'Hara.
To have been able to get away with it like this, just without, it just doesn't make sense. None of this makes any sense. It had to have been somebody they trusted that was, you know what I mean? I mean, somebody who knew the house well, somebody who knew them well.
Now, please keep in mind when we fast forward to 2025, after the suppression hearings, we find out the dates of when Dylan Mortensen had interviews with law enforcement. And that would be November 13th, November 17th, December 1st, December 13th, and then finally December 30th.
Okay. On December 30th, now going to report 137, the 12:30 interview, Joe Lake writes up a report. And in this report, Joe Lake says letter O. And this is from Dylan's interview. So he watched he was watching his audio video of the interview and then writes his report. And so O says, when Mogan and Gonsalves returned to the residence during the early morning hours on November 13, 2022, Bethany and Dylan joined the two in Kaylee's room. The four were having fun and discussing their evening. Mogan repeatedly took Kaylee's grub truck food, so they wanted to get more, but none of them could drive. It says blank, and which I believe is Mortensen attempted to call Eric, the Uber driver, to see if he could grab more grub truck food, but Eric wasn't available. Well, we have the text messages, and it was not anybody calling. I mean, maybe there was a call. Maybe, but Eric said he was driving, and it wasn't that he never was. I don't know where Joe Lake is getting that from. We have not broke down Dylan's interview on 12:30. We will, but had to point that out, that he wrote that down. But then again, Mitch Noonan's, if he would have actually went from his body cam, he wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that he did in his Exhibit A.
She also said something very significant that none of us knew before, and that was that her daughter, Xana, likely had a lock on her bedroom door. Her mom believes that her bedroom door had a lock. And she also said that Xana's dad, Jeff, had just the week before this murder been at that house to fix a lock, whether it was the lock on the bedroom.
It was the hinges. So do you see how this game of telephone, you see how, we've been watching all these body cams, and the game of telephone, it's real. wow, how the story got to where it got to. Okay.
Door or an outside door to the house, that's unclear. But Xana's mom knows that Xana's dad had fixed a lock at that house just the week before. I want to bring back in Brian Enton, who has been on this case. Brian, see the photo on the screen right now. On the left-hand side is an image of an inside lock on a bedroom door in the basement, in the lower floors. And the person who took that picture was the former tenant who moved out in 2009. And he told Fox Digital that his bedroom door had a coded lock, and that's the photo of it. He said every bedroom in that house had a coded lock on it. But if we look on the right-hand side, that's a recent picture from social media.
Again, I have no idea how you could ever put this out. This is the easiest thing to research. Again, I would be happy to be one of Ashley Banfield's researchers. I know her producer. I would love to help research for the show. But this is just, I was trying so hard to correct this over and over and over. This was so not the case. The case is that there wasn't these individual leases. Okay. And I knew this, I put it out. And now when you read all these documents, it says it right there. You know, it was considered Maddie's house because it was Maddie's lease. And then she asked people to, move in, and then they had to pay Maddie. It was not like you signed some individual lease and was moving into a room and that was your room. That is not how this was ever. Wasn't that way when Maddie moved in, before, when all of these girls moved in 2022.
Of the second floor bedroom across from the kitchen. And you can see that does not appear to be, at least in this picture, a coded lock. So it's possible that in the last 3 years, some of the bedrooms may have actually changed, but it is quite a development to hear definitely that Xana was on the second floor and that her mom believes she had that lock and her dad had worked on it a week prior, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time we've heard that, Ashley. So I'm just trying to think this through here. A different lock, is that a reason that the killer was possibly able to get into the room? Certainly possible, but just heartbreaking. I was listening to your whole interview so closely. Just heartbreaking to hear that mom speak for the first time. Very similar what she's saying to Kaylee's parents, who I spoke to a couple of hours ago. Just frustration that they don't have information. And frustration that they say the police aren't keeping them updated as frequently.
So that is something that is new at this point. Obviously, Brian, tomorrow is the 3-week mark since those kids went out on a Saturday night, like all college kids do.
Right there, 3 weeks. This episode was 3 weeks old. Okay, this episode here today, 3 years old.
And had a great time and got home.
Mainstream media had a ton of questions over the course of day 1, day 3 weeks, which is 21 days. How do they not still have any questions here 3 years later? If anybody is reading any of these documents and they've said that they followed this case and have been reading documents since day 1, the documents that they would be reading and that are being uncovered do anything but tell you, yep, see guys, look at this. See, look, wow, look at this. Everything that the state's been telling us, look at this. See, it was all going to come out in trial. This is why he took a plea deal. No. In fact, on let's see. Let's see. All right. Tyson Barrett. Tyson Barrett was the first person called from Gunnarson's phone and all the body cams that we've been watching. On 11/21/2022 at around 2:30, Tyson Barrett says that he met with the University of Idaho Department Director of Public Safety and Security, and his name is BL, regarding saved security camera footage on the campus. Tyson Barrett saying we, MPD, provided BL an external hard drive to recover the footage, and he'd completed the transfer of information. After receiving the hard drive, I immediately turned it over to FBI agent Dave Bodley. Dave Bodley was not on the state's witness list, and instead, Dave Bodley was on the defense witness list. He is with the FBI. And he's saying that I turned that over so that his team could review the data. Okay. He says he does it on 11/21/2022. Now, he would then go on to write a report in July of 2023, 7 months later, for something that he did on 11/19. Ready? On 11/19/2022, so Tyson Barrett wrote this report up on 7/13. 7 months later, he says, on 11/19/2022, I emailed KN at the University of Idaho Office of General Counsel requesting a list of vehicles with parking permits on campus or had been ticketed between August 1st of 2022 and 11/13 of 2022. The request was made to assist investigators locate persons who own vehicles of interest in the ongoing homicide investigation. On 12/8/2022, I received an email from KN that contained a spreadsheet showing U of I records for parking passes and parking tickets for any white Elantras dating back to 2017. The email containing the spreadsheet was forwarded to the investigation team. Wait, come again? Ann Taylor requested some information, and it forced Tyson Barrett to write up this report 7 months later on what he did on 11/19. Now, if you are asking the university for multiple makes and multiple vehicle makes and models, they would be giving you a spreadsheet back with all of those multiple different 7 charts, Well, how about this? I went back last night and took another peek at Agent Rob Hill from the FBI and Agent Immel and what they were disclosed as. They were disclosed, obviously, they're FBI agents. Hill wrote up a report in February of 2023, and then it was considered a draft, and then a final report in May of 2023, right before the grand jury. Okay. In Hill's report that he filed, there was also Immel's report that came out in March of 2023. Okay. It wasn't until March of 2023 that this was a finalized report. There could have been draft, reports or disclosures. I'm not sure if there are. I have not seen a draft yet. But when I went back to check some stuff out, they had Agent Rob Hill is listed as a rebuttal witness. That means a rebuttal witness means that he's not coming in your case in chief. And Rob Hill was going to be testifying to the movement of the car, basically, by the head. That whole report that talks about all the timestamps. Okay, that's Rob Hill's report. And the state has him listed as a rebuttal witness, which means you're not coming out in the like when the state's putting on its case in chief, he's not going to be heard. The state's going to then rest. Now, the state says that they were using Rob Hill as a rebuttal to what Ann Taylor's expert witness is, and his name is Becker. Okay. But I'm thinking to myself, who is going to testify? Who was going to testify for the state on talking about the path of travel for this vehicle? Because Judge Hippler made it clear that the way that this would work is the only people that could opine on things would be the experts. Now, there's one big problem. On 11/19/2022, when Tyson Barrett says he emails, because what he did is he went through all of his emails, and he clearly went through them all because he lists them all. He's listing everything by dates. He's not like, oh, at the beginning of the investigation, I emailed KN. He doesn't say like that. He gives the exact date, which is 11/19/2022. And there's one problem here. 11/19/2022 is the first date that the FBI is ever, when I say the FBI, I'm talking about Immel, who is the person that's looking at the vehicles and to give you like, hey, when we punch it into our analyzer, this is what it's coughing back up. On 11/19, that was the first date that Immel was sent anything. And it was from the camera of 11112 King Road. And he spit it back to them saying, we can't use this. The blurring and the blooming of the headlight. And then he sent something on 11/21/2022. Same thing. We can't use this. Can't use this. So on 11/19/2022, when Tyson Barrett is emailing KN at the University of Idaho Office of General Counsel requesting a list of vehicles with parking permits on campus or had been ticketed between 08/2022 and 11/13/2022, what vehicles are you saying are of interest on 11/19? Who was determining what vehicles are of interest? And I'm going to sit here and tell you right now that it couldn't have been the FBI, because the FBI didn't even, any video that they got on 11/19 and 11/22, Immel says right here in his report, the forensic audio, video, and image analysis program was requested to determine the make, model, year of the questioned vehicle depicted in the submitted media. The submitted videos and images were electronically processed to identify the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. 7 vehicle make, model charts were produced. See the opinions section for the results of the examinations. The details of the examinations. The dates of this examination were November 19th through March 21st of 2023. The submitted videos and images were electronically processed, from which 7 make model charts were produced. The make model charts were recorded to a DVD and labeled examination results. 6 copies of this were produced, and 6 copies of the charts were printed. Reference media was recorded to a DVD and will be retained in the case file. The multiple submissions of media were reviewed independently and collectively to identify the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. Here are his opinions. The submitted videos on November 19th and November 21st, 2022 were reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. due to insufficient, not insignificant, but pretty much same thing, due to insufficient image detail and obscured views produced by the blooming of the vehicle's headlights. The make, model, and year could not be determined. That is November 19th and November 21st. Whatever they sent, which was on November 19th, they sent 7 MP4 video files. The balcony video depicting questioned vehicle received on 11/21/2022. And then 5 MP4 videos and 2 WMV videos depicting questioned vehicle received electronically on 11/19/2022. I said to myself, wait a second, MP4, 7 MP4 video files. And then there's a wave, a WMV file. But both dates had 7 videos. Okay. Both of them on November 19th and 21st were from the balcony view, which is 1112. And this is when Immel says, you guys, the blooming of the vehicle's headlights. Okay. We cannot give you a make, model, or year. So then go back to on 11/19. Okay. Tyson Barrett says, on 11/19, I emailed KN at the University of Idaho Office of General Counsel requesting a list of vehicles. The request was made to assist investigators locating persons who owned vehicles of interest. There were no vehicles of interest on 11/19/2022. Who was determining what vehicles were of interest? Now, it wouldn't be until the next thing in Immel's report, the submitted videos on November 23rd, 2022 were reviewed to determine the questioned vehicle's make, model, and year. The questioned vehicle shares similar class characteristics with a 5th generation Hyundai Elantra between 2011 and 2013. Now, I want to take a look at what did he look at on 11/23. Multiple images and videos depicting questioned vehicle received electronically on 11/23/2022. And I said, well, that's really interesting. On 11/19, he's really specific, and he says he received 5 MP4 videos and 2 WMV videos. And then on 11/21, he's really specific, and he says, I received 7 MP4 video files. All of those were from the 1112 balcony view. Then on 11/23, he's saying multiple images, that's still images, not videos. Okay. Multiple images. And then videos. So in the first two, on 11/19 and on 11/22, or on 11/21, he doesn't ever say that he received any images. Okay. Right. But here on 11/23, multiple images and videos depicting questioned vehicle received electronically on 11/23/2022. And this would be the email strand between Ed Jacobson, FBI, local CDA. He was involved in the Brian Drake, Dr. Moore case. He can't comprehend to save his life, or he's bad, or he's a cheater. But this is the email strand 11/23/2022 that has to do with everything with Ridge Road. The 1125 Ridge Road. Still images and video footage. And without Immel testifying to, or the FBI turning over what was provided to him on that day, which he has put in the case file. So it's like, let me see what you looked at so we can see where these cameras are located. Okay. So he's saying that after he reviewed what he was sent on November 23rd, he says the question vehicle shares similar class characteristics with the 5th generation Hyundai Elantra between 2011 and 2013. The similar class characteristics include, but are not limited to, the overall body shape, window. So he's listing all this stuff. Then, okay, ready? During Ann Taylor's arguments, she says to Hippler, it wasn't until my client was identified that they changed the car interest from a 2011 to 2013 to then expand into, say, to 2000 and from 2011 to 2016. And Hitler's like, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. No, that's not true, because they didn't know about your client. And the people over there, and even WSU people, they didn't know about him until 11/29. And then you have Payne testifying saying, yeah, I didn't even know about WSU, Tenego, and Whitman, right? But Ann Taylor said, not so fast. On 11/25, they knew about my client on 11/25, and they identified him by his car because of the St. Andre Love spreadsheet. And the date on it is 11/25/2022. And this is what Blaker tried to hide. This is why Blaker was always writing his reports 6, 7 months later, 9 a year. And he was never writing his reports to give an actual date of when he was doing anything. Okay. But the reason that the PCA has WSU's officers in it is because they are trying to get everything away from even looking at Pullman, and that the Pullman police had anything to do with anything. The Pullman Police Department worked side by side with Detective Blaker and Detective Vargas, side by side, beginning on 11/17, when Chris Engel, Detective Chris Engel of the Pullman Police Department, reaches out, and Idaho State Police reach out to them. Andy Huddle. Andy Huddle is a detective who worked on the Brian Drake, Dan Moore case. He's with the Idaho State Police. Detective Huddle, Andrew Huddle. Detective Huddle is not on the state's witness list, but Detective Huddle is on Ann Taylor's witness list. And it's to show this relationship between the Idaho State Police and the certain detectives of the Moscow Police Department and their relationship with Chris Engel and his team. So now on 11/23, they show him the Ridge Road camera pictures and images and videos. Somehow on November 26th, so here it says, Immel says, on November 26th, after reviewing expanded known information to include the rear bumper reflector and the shape of the front fog lights on the Hyundai Elantra, the question vehicle's year was expanded to the 5th generation between 2011 to 2016. And that's where, out to the whole public, when anybody would read this and look at this, oh, November 26th, no, WSU didn't know him until November 29th. That's right. WSU acted like they didn't know who he was until November 29th with those two guys. Okay. But on November 25th, this is why Ann Taylor does request number 346 and 347, where she specifically asks, let me pull it up here. She specifically asks, right here. I'll use Hector. Okay. Brett Payne writes the Pullman Police Department, and they write Penny on August 7th, 2024. Not Detective Blaker. Payne does this. Okay. Hello, Penny. I was given your information in order to request the following documentation for the Kohlberg case. The following information was requested by defense counsel. All reports, videos, photographs, notes, and communications from Pullman Police Department regarding their involvement in this case, including but not limited to all records from Sergeant Chris Engel. 46 was, so that was 317, and then 346. Copy of Love's spreadsheet as referenced in Sergeant Engel's email to Pullman PD officers. St. Andre, love St. Andre right here. Love St. Andre. He's an officer. He's like, do they want the first original spreadsheet that I made with nothing on it, or the one that I actually filled in? And he's like, both. So both, he says, because that's just on the reverse side, which is right here. So Penny says, please gather all that you have and send it to me. Kelly is on vacation this week. I'm not waiting. Is my spreadsheet referencing the blank one I made or the one I personally filled out? So then think about this. Ready? You need to have metadata behind this, because if you created a spreadsheet at first, right? And then you take it out with you, and let's say that because what you're supposed to be doing is, writing stuff down. Don't approach the vehicle. Just take the information. Okay. Then you finally get back and you type it into your spreadsheet. Well, we know how long this takes people to do, right? So she's like, well, just both. Okay, send both. So he says, see attached. This is his blank one. It's not even formatted yet to be like landscape yet. Okay, there you go. And here, my ladies and gentlemen, friends, is the typed up version. Now, let me show you guys something about this. This, ladies and gentlemen, is absolute proof. Okay. 1630. See that? The white one. These are the first ever documented. Hey, we're looking for white Honda Elantras between 2011 to 2013. So why would he be even marking down any ones that are past 2013? This was found on 11/25/2022. That's Brian Kober's vehicle. Okay. More importantly, the plates for it right there. Go and check it out. It says it's a Washington plate. That's the new number that he got. Okay. That means that this had to have been found after 11/18 or when he left the DMV. Okay. And 11/25. Okay. Now, this was given over. So this was turned over by Sergeant Engel to Detective Blaker. Like just boop. Now, whether or not Detective Blaker is admitting to Payne what a shitbag he is and whatever the fuck he's working on, this was all handled, as you can see, the dates here. Ann Taylor asked for it in number 317 and whatever the number was. What was number 317 and 347? What I looked for, and I think what Ann Taylor looked for, was she wanted more information, which was, I want to know when Brian Kober's name was ever mentioned in any messages. Penny, confirm that all email communications with Kohlberger in the message have already been included. Confirm written reports have been included. The only work remaining is from Sergeant Engel. Sergeant Engel writes up his report of his involvement in this case after the plea deal with Brian Kohlberger in August of 2025. Detective Payne does a request in August of 2024 based on Ann Taylor's request. I'm going to hit them up. Well, I was looking, I was like, you know what? That doesn't seem right because I swear they had reached out in February. Yes, they did. Here you go. Can I please get an IM search for Kohlberger from 01/01/2020 through 02/15/2023 for any and all requests that he's ever had? To Penny from Kelly. Can I please get an email search, an IM search for Kohlberger? Instant message, that's internally. An IM search is internal. And what does she do? This was back in February. So why would Detective Payne be asking, or Aaron Brashears be asking about any of that shit in, oh yeah, there it is. So she shows that in the IM, the name Kohlberger doesn't come up. That's the original, 317 and 346, the love spreadsheet, because she saw, Ann Taylor saw the emails from Chris Engel to Danny Vargas, the Vargas emails. So she then went ham and was asking about this love spreadsheet because they were trying to bury the fact that they had his name. So here it is. There's 22,000 white. How in the world can you sit here and tell me that, hey guys, be on the lookout for this, right? In the first, how many were there? 7 within the first, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His is the 8th one found. What are the odds of that? That boom. His is the 8th one found. This is the first spreadsheet they ever did. His is the 8th one found. They tried to bury this. Now, so let me go back to what this whole point is, which is how in the world is Tyson Barrett writing up on November 19th? November 19th. Remember I told you guys back in the day, I said, I believe that they had Brian Kohlberger's name right around the 18th. And I said, I'm going to prove it one day. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to prove this. Okay. Well, on Tyson Barrett writes up his report. You guys can see 7/13/2023. That's Gunderson calls Barrett. Tyson Barrett. He's always on the phone with him. This is his work on 11/19/2022. Why are you thinking on 11/19/2022 that it's a white Honda Elantra that you were looking for? The FBI hasn't even disclosed, hasn't even been given stuff, but the stuff that they did, and they were communicating right back on 11/19 and saying, I can't even send this through anything. Then 11/21, I can't even send this through anything. So how is Tyson Barrett on 11/19, his email, which is, it's discoverable and Ann Taylor has it, that email was asking for KN at the University of Idaho of General Counsel. He was requesting a list of vehicles with parking permits on campus or had been ticketed between 8/1/2022 and 11/13/2022. The request was made to assist investigators locate persons who own vehicles of interest in the ongoing homicide investigation. Now, the way that he would write this up, it's misleading. It makes it seem like there's multiple vehicles, right? This person, look at 11/19. This person doesn't get back to him until on 12/8/2022, the day after it's made public about this white Elantra, because they tried to make it, hey, send it to us like this way. On 12/8/2022, I received an email from KN that contained a spreadsheet showing U of I records for parking passes and parking tickets for any white Elantras dating back to 2017. The email containing the spreadsheet was forwarded to the investigation team. On 11/30/2022, I emailed KN and requested the rosters for all the fraternity. So he basically, because Ann Taylor's like, where's all this stuff? Because we're missing the connecting pieces here. So Tyson Barrett had to go write up a report on 7/13/2023 documenting all of these emails that Ann Taylor found. Okay. So that's why they have all these dates. And he's being really interesting about this because the person who owned vehicles of interest in the ongoing homicide, what were those vehicles that you think are of interest? Because on 11/19 and 11/21, the FBI supplied no information on any make and models of any vehicles because nothing could be identified. That didn't come until 11/23. So how is Tyson Barrett emailing somebody on 11/19 and acting like he knows vehicles of interest? What vehicles of interest did Tyson Barrett have? And where'd they come from? Well, Tyson Barrett's going to have to answer that, huh? Last thing I want to point out here is on 1/17/2023, I received an email from, this is Tyson Barrett still, KN, indicating the U of I had completed downloading the data from their security camera system onto a server MPD provided. I relayed this information to our forensic detectives, and they were put in contact with U of I staff to take possession of the server. Well, why that's interesting to me is because you guys gave them an external hard drive. On 11/21. This is BL regarding saved security camera footage on campus. So then if you did that on 11/21, I received an email back from KN indicating the U of I had completed downloading data from their security camera system. So what is that? I'm curious what this is and what this is from, because this claims that an external hard drive to recover the footage, and he completed the transfer of information. After receiving the hard drive, I immediately turned it over to the FBI agent. And so this is where Ann Taylor was going to get really specific with, wait a second, is there a ton more? Because whatever was given to this dude Does it match what the 117 server was? And my guess is that it does not. It does not. And that there was a ton of extra shit, because I'm guessing Anne knows, like, hey, we want a list of all the cameras that the university has, and we're going to tell you what cameras we need, right? Like, that's what I would be doing for that night, to see who's walking around on campus. Like, where are all your campus cameras? Like, this was President Green's big push when he wanted to become president and when he took over in 2019, was about safety on campus. Okay. Now, I want to know why Mia Batista reached out to Thad O'Sullivan. Mia Batista runs the legal records at the MPD. She's legal. She lawyer, runs all this. Why did she reach out to Thad O'Sullivan on April 25th, 2023, and left him a voicemail that said, I left you a lengthy voicemail, hoping we can visit before you release any records related to Kohlberger. Okay, why? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Because you do understand, in public records requests, we would have been able to get information, right? That at that point in time, the police were not giving, and the prosecutors were not giving Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor's not getting stuff until well after August of 2024. Why are you even hitting? I'm hoping we can have a visit before you release any records related to Brian Kohlberger. And how I had to find out that this was even Mia Batista, okay, was because I had to do research on the number that this voicemail came from. And it's from Ring Central. Now, going back to, oh wait, here, let me show you something. Okay. So the big thing that we have a problem with is we have Tyson Barrett requesting, he's saying that he provides the University of Idaho with here's make and models of vehicles, or he making it seem like it's multiple, but the only thing that Idaho gets back to him on 12/8 is Elantras. Okay. And that was on 11/19. So I'm going to show you something really quick. Judge Hippler, when he put out his order, which was on the defendant's motion in limine to, hey, this vague and undisclosed expert testimony, this was his order, okay? And so something that I really want to point out, I think it's just extremely, extremely important. Okay. Rob Hill, right here. Rob Hill. Rob Hill is the author of this FBI report that is everything to do with the path of travel. And then Immel, because Ann Taylor had no problems with Immel. So Rob Hill's down here. Okay. Immel, this is his report, okay, which is he gave to Travis Shirley. And this is his opinions on the make, models, 7 charts, 7 vehicle make model charts were produced. So this man never once from any of this stuff ever said, okay, that was just a Hyundai Elantra. Okay. So this is the ruling. And then I'm going to come back to this. Rob Hill, footnote 24. The state submitted only a rebuttal disclosure for Agent Hill. I said, wait a second, only a rebuttal? That means he cannot be in their case in chief. That means he's not going to be in the case in chief. Like, who's going to be testifying to the path of travel? Rob Hill. Rob Hill is a special agent with the FBI who reviewed surveillance footage from the hours before and the hours and before and after the homicides occurred, depicting what law enforcement believes is suspect vehicle 1. Well, this is the problem here. What do you mean what law enforcement believes? Because Hippler's words were very interesting at the hearing. Agent Hill was disclosed to rebut opinions by defense expert Stephen Becker that it was not possible to ascertain from the surveillance videos whether a front license plate was missing from the vehicle. That's all. So Becker was going to talk about, based from, hey, here's the discovery that we got, Ann Taylor says, here you go, Becker. What do you got? Because we're trying to show that there was no such thing as this whole license plate missing, blah, blah, blah. That was just added on to, after the fact. And she got paid to say that in a hearing, saying, yeah, we never even thought about that. Nobody from the FBI had ever said that. Oh, wow, this is missing a front license plate. Okay. Now, I was talking to Mark yesterday. We had a nice conversation. Mark B, if you're listening. And he said, where's the video? Where is the video where we can see? Where's the video? Where's the angle? What's this coming from? Right here. This. Where's that at? Where's that? And for the record, this was chart number. See how it says 3? I always knew that there was multiple charts. I just didn't know how many there were until I actually got the confirmation of 7. So there was 7 vehicles that the FBI said that based on whatever you've given us, these are the 7 possibilities. Okay. So here, Judge Hippler believes that, hey, Agent Hill isn't going to be testifying unless it's a rebuttal. And I'm like, what? Then who's testifying to any of this movement? So Agent Hill was disclosed to rebut opinions by defense expert Stephen Becker. But you guys understand that if Stephen Becker comes on to talk about the fact that, hey, you're looking at all these surveillance videos, can you tell from any of these videos that the front license plate was missing? So if that's what Agent Hill is going to be used for, it says Agent Hill's rebuttal references the full summary of video depicting suspect vehicle 1, which has been disclosed to defendant. The full summary of video as a basis for his opinion that suspect vehicle 1 did not have a front plate. Okay. Well, wait a second. I was like, wait, what? Because again, he's going off of, now let's go. What report, an opinion, and disclosure that we have not seen yet? I'm waiting to get my hands on this. Okay. So let's go back over here. All right. And if you read through this entire opinions, here it says opinion. Opinions is what an expert can testify to. Okay, opinions. An expert can testify to it. Payne can't testify to it. Blaker. I mean, this is your guy, Immel and Hill. But here, I was like, Immel's the one that's doing. So what is Hill gonna? Where is it disclosed anywhere that? He says the following is intended as a summary of the collected surveillance footage and is not intended to be an all-encompassing report on the entirety of the collected videos. This is what Hill says. So what does Hippler do? He takes that little thing and he's like, okay, well, but what everybody's not realizing here is that he's a rebuttal. That means if Stephen Becker never even mentions, if they don't use Stephen Becker, that means that Hill can't testify in the case in chief. So who is going to testify to his entire report, which is this, all of this report, all of the path of travel. Who's going to testify to all of this? This is what I thought somebody was going to be testifying to. Right? Well, let's see what it's right here in black and white. And I was like, wait a second. Rob Hill is a special agent with the FBI who reviewed surveillance footage from the hours before and after the homicides occurred, depicting what law enforcement believes is suspect vehicle 1. But Hippler said that law enforcement can't come out saying what they believed, because that's an opinion. Agent Hill was disclosed. What you can say is, I gathered all the surveillance images and surveillance material, and I gave it to Agent Hill. You understand? Like, that's how this would be testified to. You're just talking about where you went and obtained it from, when you obtained it, when you turned it over, those type of things. That's fact witnesses. That's what any of these investigators would be testifying to that are ISP and MPD, to facts. Like, I went and got this on this day. Then I went and brought it to him. Okay. Then he emailed me back and said, here, you know what I mean? And now guess what? You can't testify to hearsay. So again, Payne can't be like, or Blaker or whoever can't say, and this is what he told me. Or he emailed me back and this is what it said. No, I emailed him and then he emailed me back. That's facts. Okay, that's it. So my question is holy shit, who's going to, after you're discussing all the facts and where all this stuff, information came from, who then's going to talk about the information? Like, who fact checked the fact that there's no camera footage at Linda Lane from 3:30 until 4:06? Then he says, Agent Hill's rebuttal references the full summary of video depicting suspect vehicle 1, which has been disclosed to defendant as a basis for his opinion that suspect vehicle 1 did not have a front plate. He then lists the specific camera locations, and I'm like, wait, what? It's like, okay, well. Through the course of this investigation, investigators performed an extensive canvass of Moscow, Idaho, and the surrounding areas to include Pullman, Washington, and all those places, okay, for video surveillance which may have been relevant to this investigation. The surveillance which was collected was reviewed by Special Agent Hill in conjunction with other investigative leads in an attempt to identify and locate a suspect and or suspect vehicle. I think Hippler missed this part. So again, the surveillance which was collected was reviewed by Special Agent Hill in conjunction with other investigative leads in an attempt to identify and locate a suspect and or suspect vehicle. Through this surveillance review and a review of other investigative leads, and so through this surveillance review and a review of other investigative leads, a suspect vehicle identified as a 2011 to 2016 white Honda Elantra. There we go. Ready? Well, what other material? What other material? What leads? What leads? They're not allowed to say IGG. Okay? You're not allowed to mention that. So how can I, as a defense attorney, I'm 100% asking about this. And would have. Yeah. Okay, so it says, and, right? The surveillance which was collected was reviewed by Special Agent U, right? In conjunction, that's like and, right? Like in conjunction with, what would you define that as? Yeah, I reviewed the material and other material. Okay. With other investigative leads in an attempt to identify and locate a suspect and or suspect vehicle. That's confirmation bias. You're walking towards confirmation bias right there. The following is intended to be a summary of the collected surveillance, a summary of the surveillance footage, highlighting pertinent sightings, which appear to show vehicles matching the description of vehicle 1 or sightings of individuals matching the description of Kohlberger on November 13th, 2023. And now Ann Taylor is going to object to anything that has anything to do with the next day as it's irrelevant. She's going to say that she's going to object and say that any of that stuff is 100% irrelevant to show any video of him anywhere after noon and all those. How is that probative? What's the value there that makes that be more? How is it bolstering the case? She was going to argue that. Next, where does it talk about this license plate? Then it says that below noted camera locations were checked for their time accuracies. How were they checked for their time accuracies? It doesn't say. So again, you have to say, well, you say you checked it for time accuracies. How did you do that? The following time accuracies was found for each location. I don't care what you found. You say you found. How did you do this? What's your methodology? Then it says, after they decide and determine all that, the following is intended as a summary of the collected surveillance footage and is not intended to be an all-encompassing report on the entirety of the collected videos. Okay, agent note, for a visual representation that he has maps. Okay, great. What does it do? Then it just goes into all of this. So there has to be another disclosure. And so I'm guessing that the disclosure that's the rebuttal is a different report. And so we're still waiting to get that disclosure because nowhere in here does it talk about anything about the license plate, for the record. Then right here it says, defendant contests that since Agent Hill has not offered an opinion as to any videos other than those specific clips referenced, his testimony must be limited to those identified clips. However, Agent Hill's disclosed opinion is not restricted to the identified clips. It expressly based on the full summary of video of suspect vehicle 1. okay, so then I said to myself, it's got to be something else that he's disclosed. And the defense is over here like, no, Anna, you don't get it. They didn't disclose anything ever about this license plate. And in fact, we have Detective Payne on the record saying that whole coming up with the whole license plate happened after the fact. Okay. So then I said, oh my God. Like, now is Judge Hippler like lost his mind? You guys, the whole point of expert disclosures is you have to disclose this opinion. Okay. So even if he's going to be a rebuttal, okay, Agent Hill still has to disclose his opinions as to rebut whatever Becker was going to say. So if Becker was going to say, hey, from these videos, you can't see and you cannot determine anything about that, the license plate. Okay. And what all Ann Taylor is trying to say is, I have no idea how they're going to make this argument when they have not disclosed to us what his opinions even are. We don't even know that he is going to opine that he disagrees and that you can actually see where is that being disclosed? That's what a disclosure is if I'm an expert, I have to turn over a report. And then after that report, that's what I'm testifying to. If I try to go crazy off with it say stuff that's not remember. You guys remember the Karen Reed case? And it's like in the middle of trial, they wanted to submit these reports. And it's like, wait, what? You can't do this. What's going on here? You can't just fucking. And I'm just over here like. So Judge Hippler's lost. Judge Hippler's out in La La Land, okay, with this shit. But at the end of the day, if he's only being disclosed as Rob Hill is a special agent with the FBI who reviewed surveillance footage from the hours before and after. Agent Hill was disclosed to rebut opinions by defense expert Stephen Becker. That it was not possible to ascertain from the surveillance videos whether a front license plate was missing from the vehicle. Agent Hill's rebuttal references the full summary of video. They're saying that this report is to rebut that? Motherfucker, it ain't. This is the report that you guys used to convince a grand jury to indict Brian Kohlberger. This is what you used through hearsay. We need the testimony to see what happened at that grand jury to see who testified to this shit. Because you're allowed to testify to hearsay. So if I relay all this information to you and I'm an expert with the FBI and I relay it to you who's MPD, Mowry, let's say, and Mowry goes and talks about it, then yeah, he's relaying and then guess who gets to make the questions up? So now going back to this whole date and everything, so, okay. I wanted to track, so basically after, after Tyson Barrett discloses in July, okay, I'm going to disclose the fact that I did write an email. It's discoverable. And it's going to show the date on November 11th or November 19th. I'm asking and telling campus guys that we have vehicles of interest. And he's acting like he's doing this because it's what the investigators have determined. These would be all stuff given prior to Mowry going back to the house at 1112 on November 19th to plug in the camera and do all of this shit. This would also be coming from screen recordings that would be in the form of these MP4s, whatever, MP3s, whatever they have. these are not in the form of. The first AVI that's talked about here is on December 7th when he received this. And I believe he says, well, from December 7th, he's unable to. I want to know what video that was from. On December 7th, he said the same thing. He could not determine anything from it. And then it was here on December 20th, the day after Brian Kohlberger's name comes out, they say, is when these 3 AVI videos and 2 Word documents depicting, and these are going to be from over there on WSU's campus. Okay. But wouldn't we all love to know what this was 2 days after Brian Kohlberger's name is typed into Idaho State Police lab name tabs? I would love to know what video that one is. So I'm going to request all this shit. But it's Geofence came back between November 18th and November 20th. Molly McMichaels is being in contact. November 19th, Barrett's over here saying he already knows what cars that they're of interest of. Like, why would you still be going after Jack Showalter in December 3rd and 4th when you guys were staking out? And do you guys know about that? How on December 3rd and 4th, they were literally following Jack Showalter all over. December 3rd and 4th. If you were so hell-bent on the car being a white Elantra on November 19th, on November 25th, on November 23rd, right? Why are you? And the answer to that is very simple. It's because some people were in the know. Some people were in the know. And then other people were actually running an investigation. Because not everybody can be in the know. Not everybody in the Karen Reed case was in the know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I'm saying like in the know, like, hey, we're doing this, but don't tell anybody. Hey, this is what we're doing. William, Dawn, Sleuther, like that name. Yes, rest in peace, Tommy, and to Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan. 3 years. I wish Brian would start talking. There's other people involved. Speak up. You know? Diane, thank you so much. Send a super chat. Thank you, Diane. Green Bananas. I always love that name. Let's do this. I can't change him out, so I will do more. Oh, thanks. Tell someone you love them. Yeah, absolutely. Yuri, what is good? I can get behind World Kindness Day. I know. CK, 499 super sticker. Yuri, Lana, congrats on 65,000. I know, right? Woo! Please remember to like and subscribe, all you slackers. Deborah gave off 5 memberships. Who turned green because of Deborah? Deborah, how you doing, love? All of those of you guys that are in here that were mods of Tommy. You guys rock. There he is, the True Crime Cafe. All right, so here I want to show some more of this other video. So going back.
Home at a pretty reasonable hour, you know, for college kids, 1:45 in the morning. And I'm sensing as well from the glimpse on 45 in the room, and had a great time and got home at a pretty good.
It is frequently. To Kaylee's parents, who I spoke to a couple of hours ago, just frustration that they don't have information. and frustration updated is free.
So that is something that is new at this point. You know, obviously, Brian, tomorrow is the 3-week mark since those kids went out on a Saturday night, like all college kids do, and had a great time and got home at a pretty reasonable hour, you know, for college kids, 1:45 in the morning. And I'm sensing as well from the Gonsalves family, and I cannot imagine the pain that they are suffering, especially since they've been left in the dark. But they are starting to, their patience is giving way to frustration. It seems pretty clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they, I mean, you heard what they said. I mean, they don't understand. Their main frustration tonight seemed that they just don't understand why some of the people are being cleared. They want to know what the alibis are. They're like, is it just a friend who said I saw them? I mean, they want to know what the crystal clear alibis are of why some of these people were cleared. Something else interesting, Ashley, because I heard Xana's mom bring it up, and you asked her about the stalker. I got some clarification tonight about that from Kaylee's family. They actually don't know of a specific stalker or that she was being stalked, but they did say something similar to what Xana's mom just told you, just that, you know, these were very, very pretty girls, and that it wouldn't surprise them if there was a stalker or people, men following them around. But they did not know of a specific person.
Well, that's fascinating because the police said in a news conference when a reporter asked, where did you get the information about the stalker, you know, to start with? The police said it came up in interviews that they've been conducting. They didn't say who.
Okay. I was waiting for this. Oh my gosh. You're right. It did come up in conversations. It was not the people. It was not the people being interviewed saying it ever once. It was, we have these interviews now. The early on interviews. It is the police asking them. It is the police asking. Did anybody ever mention a stalker? Did Kaylee ever mention a stalker? You guys don't even have the whereabouts of Ethan and Xana from after you hear from the roommates that say, we didn't hear them come home. We didn't see them. You don't want to go and figure that out? Like, what? You don't want to look at any of their phones until you don't look at them because they're not downloaded until after November. They said they get them back November 29th. And then Maury writes, I'll get down to the examination of it, you know, at my earliest convenience, November 29th. So based on the reports, you would be able to question somebody and say, you didn't get any of your information from the devices, did you? Because you couldn't get into the devices, right? That's correct. So everything up until even the point that you could get into the devices was what? After November 29th, right? So we know that nothing came from the devices of any of the victims. But you did have the who, anybody that you were interviewing at that point in time, right? Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It was the police that were asking the questions. Did Kaylee have a stalker? There is not one person that I've come across yet where I've listened to their interview where they said, hey, I'm coming forward in the tip section, or I'm coming forward just walking in and saying, I got to tell you that so-and-so told me they had a stalker. Like, nobody put this in their minds. The police, they were asking this stuff day one on November 13th. Okay. And the only people that you could maybe say that ever was just like, oh, we had these weird experiences where Kaylee took out the dog and the dog went running off and the dog came back. And then Kaylee just said one time when we left and the door was just open, but I do have to admit that our door was like, it was really not functioning right. So it could have been that. But then there was this one time that Kaylee thought that somebody was like standing outside, like so that came from the roommates.
who in the interviews told them that Kaylee had a stalker, but Kaylee's dad, it came up in interviews that they've been conducting. They didn't say who in the interviews told them that Kaylee had a stalker, but Kaylee's dad, Steve, has revealed that Kaylee told her dad, Steve, that she had a stalker. So I'm trying to figure out if it was.
No, she did not. No, she did not. No, she did not. like, again, I don't know how people. Do people have like a comprehension issue, or is it that they just want to put their own spin on things? Okay, because let's say that you have a law enforcement person as your source, and they want you to push an angle, which is, and they don't just come out and tell you that. They feed you the information in a way that you will cover the case a certain way because of how they're getting out information to you. That's how it works.
Was Steve who brought that information to the police and they've not been able to corroborate it?
Nope.
Or if someone else brought that information to the police and
you guys, the parents weren't even interviewed. No parents were interviewed. No parents were interviewed. They were. Yeah, no.
Steve could corroborate it. Is that
now? Take a look at this photo right here. This photo, we know 1,000,000% now. I can tell you exactly what time that was taken because of where he's located. We have the body cam of Corbin Smith, and so I can tell you exactly what time that picture was taken. These people that were set up in and around this house, that was the media. The media was there way early on. Okay. Remember I told you guys something. I said, you know who has B-roll film? It should be A-roll film, but you know who has B-roll film of anybody leaving from the house? Like as far as people, because I just hate hearing people say that nobody died. Like you were so disrespectful to even utter that. Okay. Yes, 4 people died. And that was not in their sleep. And there's media outlets that were there that were taking pictures. And so I have no idea to this day why they can't put out a picture that shows that somebody, a vehicle there being backed up so that, hey, look at, they're here to pick up the victims. You know what I mean? It's beyond people that continue to say that. Please just be quiet. You sound like an absolute fool. Like an absolute fool. And this didn't happen anywhere else. Okay. This happened in this home. Did people maybe leave after it happened? Sure.
still unclear?
So I think there was confusion along the way, is what her parents told me.
Good job.
That I don't know if they were misquoted or how it actually came out, that the dad said there was a specific stalker, but he says that is not the case. There is not a specific person that they know of. It was more of just this general field.
The Idaho4.
There we go. Clearing that up there. So Brian Enton had to say, yeah, no, actually Ashley Banfield just said literally a minute before Brian Enton says that Steve told her that. What an idiot. How do you guys mix that up so bad? And I think maybe it's when you're doing, I shouldn't say, I think it probably comes when it's like, maybe you're doing multiple things at the same time. You're covering multiple stories. So I want to take that back. I'm not calling Ashley Banfield an idiot. I'm saying that this is idiotic. Okay, you're producing this. This wasn't live.
The Red Flag Project, episode 6, If Locks Could Kill. If you go back and look at what news stories would break on the days of Dylan's interviews with law enforcement or the days right thereafter, it seems pretty obvious that someone was leaking something from those interviews. Yes, law enforcement to media. Now, here on December 21st, 2022, our good buddy JLR would make his way out to Moscow, Idaho, and he attempted to interview the vape guy. Yes, the store manager, just like News Nation did, but he didn't have as much as a success as News Nation did.
Police made no arrests.
Why was law enforcement running them from these stalker narratives, only to then push it in their probable cause affidavit?
Like I said, they probably, I'd say, 4
went in there to try to speak and get some clarity from the vape shop manager.
All right, so I do have a section here. If you go to my videos, if you go under playlist, and it's under the Red Flag Project. I think it's number 2 that I want to show something on.
Moscow police cars come in and out of this neighborhood where officials found 4 people dead.
Boom.
Neighbors
Got it. All right. No camera. No camera. I'm all about this camera at 1112. All about this camera. Okay.
they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12. I've been here in Moscow on scene since about 3 p.m. Since I've been here, I've watched Moscow police cars come in and out of this neighborhood where officials found 4 people dead.
Okay. I have this being the next day. So it would be on 11/14. Okay. On 11/14.
Neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12 p.m. today.
See, 12 p.m. today. She's giving the story on the 12 p.m. today. She's talking about it. I didn't cut and paste anything. Like that's what it was. Damn. I think that's the money shot.
4 people dead. Neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12 p.m. today.
Boom. Yes. She cannot possibly have that on that day, and the camera may not be there. Because then Olivia reaches out on the 15th with a picture, and the camera is there. Where the body camera
around Neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12 p.m. today.
Like 3:30. Between 2:30 and 3:30, which I'm going to lean more towards 3:30. Has anyone identified these officers or agencies? I have now. That is Powell. That is
those involved or who lives at the residence, officials are investigating.
Number 2, you guys know who this is? No gloves, no problem.
This is
no gloves,
of those
no
involved
problem.
Or
Lanier
who lives at the residence, officials are investigating. This is a very much developing situation.
Is it Roger Lanier? It is. Okay, so they took the camera on that Sunday. Wow. Oh boy. Remember how it was? I sent Morris over there. I sent Morris to go unscrew it. You didn't send lies. hold on one second. I'll just keep playing this. Oh my God, I can't believe we just found that right now. This is literally what I was just talking about yesterday.
So police still have this house here. Here's a breakdown of the timeline from what we know so far. Around 1 p.m., we heard reports of a homicide investigation near the college campus. An hour later, reports of a homicide investigation. Here's a breakdown of the timeline from what we know so far. Around 1 p.m., we heard reports of a homicide investigation near the college campus. An hour later,
neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood.
Police department confirmed they had found 4 people dead, but it wasn't until late last night that they confirmed those victims were students. The university also said Moscow police do not
that there has been a lot of activity there today. So Amanda, what have you seen today?
Well, at this hour, the crime scene remains very active. This is the most active I've seen in the last few days. Right behind me, we have the Idaho State Police forensics team inside the house. And just within the last hour, I'm not sure you can see from this angle, but we do want to give some privacy. One of the top floor windows, the blinds have now been opened. We can see from a different angle some of the forensics team.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Detective Lawrence Mowry. On November 17, 2022, I requested the assistance of Officer John Rosinski to recontact PC and see if she could provide the video from the camera. Officer Rosinski contacted PC, who said that she was in Boise, Idaho until November 28th. Officer Rosinski and PC sent him a video of a male subject walking by the camera at approximately 3:20. You guys, when I'm talking about the dumpster, I'm not talking about Linda Lane. There's somebody that's walking by the dumpster at 3:20 a.m. And guess what? We don't have that because they started at 3:30 and go till 4:30. We do not have the 3:20 a.m. gentleman that's walking towards the dumpster and putting something in there. So please understand, this is not about the Linda Lane. Linda Lane dumpster, like that's considered like the dumpster video that looks out towards Taylor. We have that camera. Okay, everybody's seen that camera except for 1 hour and like 7 minutes. The Linda Lane, what I call like the parking lot view, where you can see the cars circling. Okay, like the headlights. We have that video. Now, the videos that we do not have are from 1112 King Road. And you can see the dumpster that's right there at the corner of the street, the blue dumpster. The same one that looks brand new when you're watching the body cams. Okay. There is a person at 3:20 that, according to this person who lived there, saw a male subject walking by the camera at approximately 3:20 hours towards the dumpster. On Officer Rosinski contacted me and I spoke to PC and requested permission to remove the camera from the residence, and she consented. They are trying to make it seem like this is when they took the camera, which is not accurate. The camera, as you can see, I just showed that video. It's right here. That's Krem's video that they compiled, that they put out on the day that they were there. They made that video, meaning on November 13th. November 13th, this video is made by Krem 2. Okay. Krem 2 makes this video. And this is what they use. And this means that they had to have this picture on November 13th.
I've been here in Moscow on scene since about 3 p.m. Since I've been here, I've watched Moscow police cars come in and out of this neighborhood where officials found 4 people dead.
That's footage from that day. The girls would have probably had to unscrew it to take out the little mini SIM card that they gave to Gunderson. But I have no video except for this right here showing that Detective Powell from the Idaho State Police walked up and spoke with this girl. This is the only proof of that, which is very, very important. Because then she would be explaining to him everything. She has no reason to lie about anything. Hey, this is who came up here. But
Neighbors say they began noticing police cars flood the area around 12 p.m. today.
Where did they get that information from? That's what they released.
Of those involved or who lives at the residence, officials are investigating. This is a very much developing situation.
Update on efforts to read through the sliding door to the coming in and out, some wearing plastic white suits, taking photos. Earlier in the day, I did see some flashes, what appeared to come from a camera from inside the home. They're spending all day here collecting evidence and reassessing the home here. Now, earlier today, this afternoon, I did notice the back sliding door to the house was opened at one point today. Now, we could see red markings stuck to the frame of the door. Idaho State Police spokesperson Aaron Snell told me this afternoon.
That means if there's multiple ones, there'd be the one that they sealed on the night of the 13th. Then if there's another one, it's because they sealed it on the 14th. And so
it was believed that the
day did she say she was there?
Potential suspect came through the sliding glass door. But again, there appeared to be no signs of forced entry. Now, he says, again, that forensic team is reassessing the house, looking for any potential additional evidence. In the meantime, he gave me an update on every type of events and how the public will be a huge help in this investigation.
We understand the public's frustration about not being provided a lot of information. We are working to the best of our ability to actually provide as much as possible.
FBI command vehicle to arrive in Moscow to provide
as much as possible.
FBI command vehicle to.
You would never miss a glove, a black one at that, in the middle here, like Payne's trying to say, on and from November 13th all the way until November 24th. I just wanted to pause it right there.
Arrive in Moscow to provide more workspace and additional resources for the investigation. Now, at this time, ISP says the roommates who were at the home during the attack but were not injured are cooperating with investigators. And right now, they are not suspects. They are not considered persons of interest, but ISP says no one is being ruled out in this investigation. Tonight, Snell is insisting that no one has been cleared from this investigation. Giving a quick look back here at this, again, a very active scene with forensics team on scene. Now, just in the last hour, we did get an update from the Latah County Coroner's Office. She weighed in a little bit more on that report that we received with the cause and manner of death. She can't speak right now to the defensive wounds. She doesn't know if the victims were asleep, and the time of death, she says, was sometime early in the morning. Again, they can't specify exactly what time of death because Kathy Mabbitt says it was reported many hours later. And at this point, the coroner says there's no way of knowing who was attacked on this scene through the rest of the week. For now, we'll send it back to you, Mark.
Red Flag Project number 2, the reliability of the crime scene investigation. If the 4 autopsies were not performed until the 17th, that is the day that this broadcast live from the house happened. When were the students removed from the house? Who ultimately made the decisions on what items would be tested on scene and or collected and then sent to the Idaho State Lab? Who was calling the shots pertaining to the crime scene investigation? What member from the Idaho State Police kept the crime scene log? There was heavy presence inside and outside of that house, coming and going, not just on the 13th when the bodies were found, 14th, 15th, 16th, here in this video, the 17th. The comings and goings crime scene log, very important, who was coming and going. When you want to talk about a potential placed knife sheath. As of today, January 19th, 2025, there are 3 unknown male DNA profiles that were located within the crime scene tape. 2 in very close proximity of where the deceased were located, and 1 on a glove right outside the home of 1122 King Road.
And then we find out that we have a mixed sample on the sheath. Just the lies, man. All right, so when we go back to another video, taking us all the way back. Oh, let's see. So that was episode 2 that I showed you. Episode 3. Let's take a look.
Investigators confirm Ethan and Xana were seen at the Sigma Chi fraternity house on the University of Idaho campus. Here's where things get a little shaky. Law enforcement confirms with News Nation Ethan and Xana were seen at the fraternity house around 9 p.m. They reportedly made it back home around 1:45 a.m. Investigators are still trying to piece together what...
Okay. I have a question. How is Bethany and Dylan watching this every single day? And they're like, Ethan and Xana didn't come home at 1:45. What the heck is going on? Remember when Dylan's talking about like, so I'm just shocked that neither one of these people would be like, the news is putting out information like Ethan and Xana were not home at 1:45 in the morning. They were not there. We were there. We were up. They were not there. They did not come home at that time. We would have seen them. I don't know who's putting this out there, but it's not true. Wouldn't you be saying that in your interview? When you'd be like, or I'd be calling. That's got to be documented somewhere that one of these girls, through their victim's advocate, if not through themselves, would have been saying, we never said that. We're the only people could be that source. We are the only people that could be possibly the source of that information. And we've never said that. We've said the opposite. And then the cops would have to say, hey, we're just letting them think that, because then we can pay attention to things. And if somebody is writing something, that says they didn't go home, they were you know what I mean? Then we're going to go and start asking that person questions. That's the only answer that you could possibly give those two girls. But they would first have to say, hey, we're the only people that could be the potential source of that. And we've never said that. Right? Isn't that wild? Green bananas. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Green bananas. Murky, hi, just checked. It was 3:14 a.m. when Guy was at Lind Lane Dumpster. So it's probably same guy at 3:20 a.m. looking into dumpster in front of I always knew that existed. It was I've never seen the 1112 3:20 because what I want to see is him at 3:20, right? Where does this person go? Do they walk back the same way that they came from? Do they walk off to the right, to the left? Where does this person go? And so we've all seen the Linda Lane video. It's the video that I've been talking about when people write me, they're like, Lana, you've never seen this. I'm like, nobody has seen what I'm talking about. Nobody has. It has not been released yet. And that would be the 3:20. This girl who's the neighbor who owns the video camera. She's like, oh my God, there's this dude at 3:20. Okay, I want to hear what that clip sounds like. I want to hear, and I want to see where this guy. You would think that they'd be asking these people, do you know who that person is? I mean, does it look familiar? Of a walk, people can tell. You can tell from walks and what they're wearing, but they never mention, at 4:00 or 3:40 or 3:50 or whatever time Molly goes strolling in the middle of the road. How come that's never talked about? Really bizarre.
What happened between 9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m.
Figure out who they were with, what was going on, maybe any routes or paths that they took to end up going home, those types of things. Potentially, that is critical to the investigation.
Ooh, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. FOIA request. Holy shit. He does his interview in the lobby. That's the lobby of the police department.
9 p.m. and 1:45 a.m.
Figure out who they were with, what was going on, maybe any routes or paths that they took to end up going home, those types of things. Potentially, that is critical to the investigation.
As for the two surviving roommates, they were also out on the night of November 12th in the Moscow community. They returned home by 1 a.m. The two surviving roommates did not wake up until later in the morning on November.
They did not return home. Well, who? What? Think about all this misinformation.
They were also out on the night of November 12th in the Moscow community. They returned home by 1 a.m. The two surviving roommates did not wake up until later in the morning on November 13th. That is when they called other friends to the house because they believed one of the second floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. At 11:58 a.m. on November 13th, a 911 call requested aid for an unconscious person. The call was made from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the residence. Multiple people talked with the 911 dispatcher before Moscow police arrived at the home. Officers discovered Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan dead inside the residence on the second and third floors of the home, suffering from stab wounds.
It was a pretty large knife, so it's really hard to call them puncture wounds. And they were definitely stabbings. And I mean, it has to be somebody that's pretty angry in order to stab 4 people to death.
Initially, there were multiple people in the house. They were sleeping. They were not witnesses, and they were located on the first floor. To then, DM being frozen as the perpetrator walked past her as she stood by her door on the second floor. To then, both roommates were awake texting during the attack. That one, the latest, coming from grand jurors leaking information to the family.
Okay, so again, initially multiple people in-house were sleeping, not witnesses, and were located on the first floor. To DM being frozen as perp walked past her as she stood by her door on second floor. DM has never once said that she was in a frozen shock state. How does that get onto a probable cause affidavit? DM actually said that she was never in fear for her life, that she never feared that guy, that it was just, that's just what happens at their house.
That one, the latest, coming from grand jurors leaking information to the family.
Shocking new revelations in the brutal murders of 4 Idaho college students last fall. A new report claims the 2 roommates who survived the massacre were awake and texting each other while their 4 friends were stabbed to death one by one. This new revelation reportedly coming from grand jurors on the case and leaked to family members. Now, the only suspect, Brian Koberger, is still awaiting trial. According to the probable cause filing, one surviving roommate says she witnessed the killer, described as having, quote, bushy eyebrows, walking past her and then out of the home. Prosecutors say they do have Koberger's DNA found on.
Okay, so this should be wild to everybody. This is May 22nd. Okay, I believe it's 2023. Yes, because it was right after he gets indicted. Okay. May 22nd. And this is how we find out that the 2 survivors were awake texting during the Idaho massacre. You guys, I don't know if they're just trying to hide behind, that a grand juror said this to them because they don't want to say that a cop gave us this information. Okay, so like a grand juror, Because I'm telling you something, if there was any grand jurors that actually spoke out, okay, and said things, they would have been like how the Karen Reed case would happen to that person. Like, that's a very serious issue. And I just question if a grand juror said anything versus saying, well, we'll just say that we got it this way, that we were not giving the name of the officer who gave it to us. Because at the end of the day, this information is correct, right? They were texting. But the question is, were they texting actually during it? Or was it way after it to set up a time? To set up a time and to make it seem like this is the time of the crime. And that's what Ann Taylor was trying to explain to Judge Hippler. It's like, yeah, if you believe this narrative, okay, if you believe this narrative, and I just think Judge would have actually listened, okay, because he was there from jump. And when you get bamboozled, like Judge, whoever wants to get bamboozled and lied to, these judges were flat out lied to. I don't care what. I will argue with anybody in the country. Nobody will ever come on my show, or we'll go on an independent channel and we will politely debate the facts of the case. And nobody will ever be able to say that the prosecution did not commit prosecutorial misconduct, because they did. But I would love for anybody to stand up to me and debate it on the opposite end, because I want to make you look like a fool. And I'll make you look like a fool in my backwards hat and hoodie.
A knife sheath left under one of the victims, and the judge has entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf. Let's bring in Misty Maris, legal analyst and trial attorney. Misty, thank you so much for your time. So this is a new twist. It allegedly comes from grand jurors in the case, but no one is going on record. What was your initial reaction to this potential bombshell?
As far as this is concerned, it's really difficult to verify whether this information is actually true. So let's go through a little bit of the history of the case. When the news first broke about this terrible, tragic killing, we learned that there were 2 roommates who survived the attacks who were in the house at the time. Now, at first we heard that they were both asleep. They didn't wake up till the following day. Then hits the probable cause affidavit. Well, the story begins to change. One of the roommates now had this encounter where she sees the assailant in the house that evening. So this is a dramatic change from the information that was set forth in that probable cause affidavit, if it were in fact the case that the 2 roommates were awake and texting during that time. So what does it mean for the case? Well, that would certainly be contemporaneous evidence relayed in those text messages as to what the 2 roommates heard and saw that night. Now, again, we haven't verified whether or not this is true, and we likely won't know until the trial actually unfolds. But it would certainly be a game changer for the prosecution.
Well, it's
But how do we know that the roommates were actually texting during the time of the attack? Because didn't the roommates say that they didn't hear anything? Oh, that's right. We are being told this based on when investigators have labeled the time of the attack based on the movements of a car coming and going from the area immediately around the King Road house.
Question many of our viewers have asked. What's the story with the other 2 roommates who were home early Sunday morning?
Brad, what do you make of this revelation that about the 2 other roommates?
I think it's interesting and it's also odd. I mean, if this murder occurred at 4 in the morning, they don't report it, or someone doesn't report it till noon. What's that all about? They are the key, George, to this case. They were in the house. This type of killing, it's going to be loud both by the suspect and the victims. It's going to take a period of time. It's obviously going to be very bloody. And I just don't really understand that, but they are really the key.
Are they suspects?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, they're not talking about them being suspects at all. All I'm suggesting, it is an odd thing, right? If you're in a house, 4 people are brutally killed, and nobody contacts the police for another 8 hours, there's a big issue with that.
Not ruled out the 2 surviving female roommates.
Correct.
You have not ruled them out as suspects?
Correct.
So let me clarify that. No one has been ruled included or excluded as a person of interest and or a suspect. Everyone is still being investigated.
Are they witnesses?
They are working and talking with detectives, and they have been cooperative, very cooperative with detectives.
ISP won't say who called 911 and would not confirm who found.
Okay. Now we know this. On November 17th, seems like it was pretty late outside there. Okay. On November 17th, Dylan would be talked to, okay, for her first actual before like the 13th, they had that you guys saw like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, okay? When they want to say that they've been really cooperative, that's actually the opposite of what Detective Blaker told Bethany on the 16th, which is, why won't Dylan talk to me? So unless he is lying to Bethany to Bethany to see if she'll say some stuff just to get her to talk or something, but it's actually the complete opposite. Detective Blaker is saying that Dylan and what isn't talking to him. Also, on the 16th, that would have been the first day that, okay, he flies out to Nevada, sits down. Now the Nevada cops have so many questions. He's just sitting there trying to coax this narrative. Detective Blaker is. And then he gets back on a plane, goes to Boise, then miraculously was able to talk to Dylan on the 17th, acting like, but Dylan wasn't. Bizarre, right? Total bizarre. But you have to understand how detectives operate. Like, they lie to you. They're able to lie to you. And then on the 17th, I think he was lying because Detective Gooch is all lined up to meet. And this couldn't have been just, oh, here, you're getting off the plane. Yeah, just swing by my house. So I think Detective Blaker was lying to Bethany. I don't think that I think that should tell us something. Dude, if you have to lie to me to get me to be cooperative, I'm not being cooperative. I'm being evasive.
The bodies. ISP says protecting what the young one and would not confirm who found the bodies. ISP says protect.
Okay, now I can tell you that this was definitely not on day 13 because Bill Thompson wasn't there, nor Vargas was out of town. So there's Ashley Jennings. So this has to be on the 14th in the morning, or a day even after that. But I'm leaning towards, like, I'm just saying, talking about that picture.
Who called 911 and would not confirm who found the bodies. ISP says protecting what the young women are telling police could be the key to the entire investigation. And they're hoping the roommates can fill in the timeline between when the murders happened and when someone called 911.
What do you think happened here when that roommate came out and she said she saw him, she locked herself in the bedroom after that, but she didn't call police?
It's difficult for me to process that. And I think,
where'd she get that information from? Right there, that she saw him and then she locked herself in the room.
I think it's difficult for a lot of people to process that, hearing that information. We don't know what kind of state of mind she was in. And as you mentioned, she's living in this house. It's as quoted, a party house. A lot of things going on late at night in that house. Did she think this was a prank? Did she think this was just somebody who was...
Where are they getting these words that it was a prank? I mean, where are they getting this from? It's pretty interesting language. It's like they have sources.
Unruly and getting kicked out of the house? Was this a fight between friends? Who knows what she thought in that moment? I can only imagine how terrified she might have been. It's unfortunate she didn't call until noon the next day, but we'll learn more.
Start with the basics. Why would the murderer spare the lives of two roommates in the off-campus home? According to Kohberger's probable cause affidavit, a roommate referred to as DM says she saw a figure, quote, clad in black clothing and mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking toward her. She told authorities she was in the, quote, frozen in shock phase as the killer walked past. After that, DM locked herself in her bedroom.
Lead investigators to believe the death happened between 4 and 4:20 5 a.m. Police say Xana Kernodle received a DoorDash order at the house at about 4 a.m.
Molly just couldn't remember what name that was just written all over it. Walk around for 15 minutes, right? For the record, just because your account ordered it, depending on whose phone you last ordered on, yeah. Who's to say that, I don't know, Dylan didn't have any of that? They were the ones that were hungry.
Cell phone data also shows that she was likely awake and using the TikTok app at 4:12 a.m. A surviving roommate who lived at the house, referred to as DM in the court documents, told police something woke her up at about 4 a.m., but thought it sounded like Gonsalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms.
And told police that earlier she heard a female voice say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." And later, a male voice saying something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
At 4:17 a.m., a security camera in the area picked up a distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. At 4:20 a.m.,
I don't hear any of that, by the way.
a vehicle matching the description of the white Hyundai Elantra was spotted speeding away.
It was later in the morning when that call was made to 911 from one of the surviving roommates' phones to report an unconscious person. It is unclear what occurred in the hours before police were called.
"911, what's your emergency?"
Detectives believe that on November 12th, the two surviving roommates had also been out in the Moscow community separately, but returned home by 1 a.m. on November 13th. The two did not wake up until later that morning. On November 13th, the surviving roommates summoned friends to the residence because they believed one of the second-floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. At 11:58 a.m.,
What do you think that the Lakeland McComas thought when she's reading this stuff? Like, wait, what? 1 o'clock? Wait, what? They just went to bed. I was still there. What are the police talking about? Like, this is not true at all. I mean, think about these people that came forward and did like interviews, right? And then if they're following along, that was on November 30th that was shown. You know, each day they did a new update. Do you think that these people were like, wait, what?
a 911 call requested aid for an unconscious person. The call was made from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones inside the residence. Multiple people talked with the 911 dispatcher before Moscow police arrived to the location. Officers entered the residence and found 2 victims on the 2nd floor and 2 victims on the 3rd floor. Now, I, like most people, have problems here. 8 hours is a very long time to be in an active crime.
Okay, I gotta say it. When she's talking to Mitch Noonans and she's saying that, like, how does the story ever get to the fact that you think Kaylee ran down and was in the bathroom or the bedroom? Because when you left and you ran down, you saw Xana. And that's where I think that she was talking about that she was really confused. So I think all of those text messages happened after seeing Xana on the floor, which what she thought would have been Kaylee being over there. So seeing Xana on the floor is really confusing to her. Think about her text messages. The confusing part. I'm really confused. I thought Kaylee just ran down there. Now I'm seeing Xana. Which would mean that you would have to come out of your room and look and see Xana on the floor and then be typing anything after that. Which coincides with the whole fact of the matter, which is, when did you see this masked man? And originally she said about 10 or 20 minutes after she heard there's someone here. 10 or 20 minutes later is what, I would always go off of what the initial story of Dylan's is. What she told Mitch Noonans, take that, because then that's on the 13th. By the time the 17th rolls around and she's talking to Detective Blaker and Gooch, it's completely changed. It's completely changed. In fact, when Mowry talked to her on the day of, on the 13th, he asked, "Oh, well, did the guy leave?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't know because I ran downstairs." Well, just a minute ago, you told us that you ran back into your room and locked the door. And then a little bit before that, somebody told Emily that I heard him close the door, so that's how I knew that he left. And then I went downstairs. Those are the three versions on the 13th from Dylan Mortensen.
Scene with victims who have sustained injuries of this magnitude.
All murdered through stabbing with some kind of probably a larger knife.
She told police some of the 4 victims had defensive wounds, but none had signs of sexual assault.
What is it that you saw?
Well, there was a lot of blood. It's a very sad scene with 4 murdered college students.
One of the responding officers described the overwhelming smell of blood upon entering the residence, and I just can't understand how it wasn't obvious that
I didn't see any of the officers talking about that.
Carnage happened in that house the night before. I just cannot get past the smell, the blood, the that are
The Red Flag Project, Episode 3. The cherry-picked and law enforcement hearsay narrative of the surviving roommates. And a special shout-out thanks to True Crime Design in contributing to Episode 3, The Red Flag Project, the Idaho4 murders.
Yeah. The Detective Gooch says that Dylan Mortensen has all this, there's all these gaps with your phone. Let's see what else we got.
Looks like the glove is under some snow.
The only person lying, okay, is Detective Payne. That is not found on the pavement in that driveway. And look at the way the boots are going.
Looks like the glove is under some snow, so possibly been there for a while. I'm dumbfounded if the glove was there, why police didn't get it earlier, right? You have a crime scene, you would think you would search the entire area around the home and pick up anything and everything that you see. Notice in that picture there was also looked like a candy wrapper. It looked like a candy wrapper there with the glove. Now, was that glove planted by...
Chris would go on to let the world think that this was the glove that is talked about in the documents that would eventually come out in filed motions between the state and defense in the case, the state versus Brian Kohlberger. You know, the glove...
Now, this is why it should be mind-blowing to everybody. You know, the glove that was found on November 20th, 2022, and found to have unknown male DNA on it. This is why this is crazy. Chris McDonough says that he goes there on November 24th. So in the documents, what gloves are found on November 20th, right? Now, maybe there was just a typo there. But if I was Chris McDonough, I would have been writing into the police department saying, I found the glove on November 24th. Or I'd be calling the defense. Because if I'm all about honesty, right? Hey, if you're talking about the glove that I found on November 24th, and then because Ann Taylor's over here, based on the reports, I cannot believe that Chris McDonough isn't, I think that he would have become a witness. Chris McDonough is a witness. Chris McDonough is a huge witness because Officer Payne lies in his report and makes it seem like that he found this glove in the middle of the parking lot. He did not. He did not. On the 24th, okay, on the 24th, Chris McDonough finds it next to the garbage, the garbage cans. He tells Jake Tisdall, okay, about it. And then they call the case agent over, Payne. Payne acts like he was never called there and that he was out doing something and driving the Ford Fusion around and retracing Molly's steps. And that he pulls in, he talks to Jacob Tisdall, and that on his way back to his vehicle, that he sees it. And he kicks it with his boot and it's frozen, then he picks it up. And he believes that it has blood on it. And then it gets sent down, and it gets sent down to the lab. And if you read Riley Nolan's, she's like, what is this? What is this glove? Like it's packaged and it doesn't say anything. And I just love that Riley Nolan is just like, what are you guys doing? Why are we receiving shit like this? This is a homicide. A suspect has not been found, right? Yeah. Phenomenal work. But let's say that it would have been me that found that. And I would have saw that date and been like, wait a second, what? I'd have been calling the defense and say, hey, I'm the person that found the glove. I don't know what's going on here, but it was definitely not on November 20th. Now, unless you guys have another glove, that's fine. But I need to give you guys the version of the events here because I think there's something wrong. But now I see why Chris wanted no part of this. Because I hope to God Chris can kind of see after reading these documents that, yeah, Payne definitely did lie because that's not how any of that went down. And why would Payne be under that impression? He wouldn't have been. And if Chris has the documentation like he says where he was documenting things, he just never put it out live, I'd be putting these people on blast. Like, you're making up this whole, like, and so my question's always been has Ann Taylor seen the pictures of what Chris McDonough took and where this glove was located? Because it blows Payne's version of events out of the water, like blasts them. And did you find one glove? Was there two gloves? I've always wondered that.
Glove that was found on November 20th.
Now, I just have a question too. How do we know that those gloves weren't really inside the house and then somebody moved them outside and put them there? How do these gloves get missed? How do these gloves get missed? How do these gloves get missed? You work outside around, okay, in.
Thanksgiving, which is 11 days after the murders. Chris McDonough is a veteran of the Oceanside, California Police Department, and currently he's the director with the National Cold Case Foundation. He's also co-host of the podcast, The Interview Room, and he is live with me tonight. Detective, it's so good to have you. First of all, I am shaking my head as I even think I'm doing this interview with you. Take me there. Tell me what happened. You literally showed up and looked down and said, hello, gentlemen, come over here. Have you seen this? Is that really how simple this was?
Yeah, it really was, actually. I mean, it was my wife and I, it was Thanksgiving Day. We happened to be up here in Idaho. And I said to her, I said, hey, let's just go over where that situation's taking place at the university to get some tape. And we're walking up the street, and the first thing that caught my attention, to be honest with you, was all of the cars still parked on the property. And then I looked over and I saw there was an officer controlling the scene sitting in his vehicle. And I looked to the left and I saw that what appeared to be a glove. And I looked at my wife and I said, is that a glove?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Ooh. Look, the boot prints are right next to the glove, right? So did he take this photo after he calls over Jacob Tisdall to come look at it? And he's like, oh, interesting. Okay.
And she goes, yeah, I think it is. And so about where Brian was standing tonight, I walked over and looked over, and sure enough, it was a glove. And I immediately got the attention.
I am going to, Chris, thank you for saying that. When we go back to Brian in a little bit, I'm going to actually ask him to walk me to the exact spot so that everybody who's watching right now gets the full perspective. Sometimes it's hard when you're watching through a one-dimensional TV screen, so I'm going to do that. In the meantime, help me out with this one because you're the murder detective, but you're also the person who found it. What kind of glove was it, and the significance of the kind of glove as pertains to a murder?
Well, I can't really tell what type of glove it is, if it's a male, female. And obviously the significance may be nothing, but it also could be very significant.
But nothing. The Red Flag Project, Idaho4 case, episode 4.
Plants and inserters, closing remarks. You guys, go to this on 11/24/2022. Item 266, glove. Looks like a glove, fits like a glove. It's a glove. A glove. 11/24/2022, put into evidence. Now you read about the glove, the item. Oh, pain.
Plants and inserters. The closing remarks here is very simple. The glove that has the male unknown DNA was found on November 20th. Chris McDonough just happened to be in the area and in Idaho and thought he would just drive by and go check out the scene and happened to find a glove.
Okay, so there's so many things that happened that was crazily wrong with this. Okay. They find this glove on 11/24/2022. They lie about how they found it. Number one. Okay. Number two, then they have Dollinger take the items, this glove and other items, to the lab. Okay. He writes on his report that he took the items there on November 18th. And I'm like, these items didn't even exist then. Okay. Then come to realize that I don't know why he wrote that he did that on November 18th, but he really went there on November 28th. Okay. And so he's then dropping off these items. And that's when Riley Nolan hits everybody up and messages people and is like, what is this? What is this glove? There is there's nothing marked on this packaging. Okay. Got it. Worth the wait. On November 24, 2022, from Detective Payne, Brett Payne wrote this up on 1/11/2023. Okay. On November 24th, 2022, I collected a black polar penguin glove from the parking lot of 1122 King Road. I conducted subsequent investigation by watching the body-worn camera of Officer Nunes, the first MPD officer on scene, and looking over the scene photos taken by the ISP forensic team. None of these sources showed the glove was present upon officers' initial response to the scene or during the processing of the scene on November 13th, 2022. It is unclear where the glove came from at the time of this writing. That was a follow-up. That was supposed to be a follow-up. And it's report, if you go to report 38 though, so we have to back up. And report 38 shows us, so I'm going to go to this end part.
Themselves, like the transparent
candy wrapper. It looked like a candy wrapper there with the glove. Now, was that glove planted by Chris McDonough? I don't know. Glove. Now, was that glove planted by Chris McDonough?
Jonathan Lee Richards. Now, I do not believe that it was planted. In fact, report 38, which was from Dollinger, says that on November 18th, 2022, I met with Moscow Police Department property coordinator Tim whatever. Tim released the following items of evidence to me. It was the blood swab, which was no tag on November 23rd item. November 23rd, another item, which was blood swab. Then November 19th, there was DNA swab from November 19th. Then there was a buccal swab from somebody on 11/23. And then there was this glove on 11/24. So I'm like, wait a second. There's no way that on November 18th, he met with the Moscow Police Department property coordinator, Tim Smallridge, to get any of these items, because all these items were collected after November 18th. I mean, how can you write reports like this when this is absolutely horrible. So then I said to myself, well, this has to be November 28th then. Like, I don't know. And he just wrote November 18th for some reason. But then I realized he wrote his report on November 28th. And I realized that he wrote his report at noon. And I'm like, he wrote his report because then he said, I then transported those items of evidence to Meridian, Idaho, where I turned them over to the Idaho State Police Forensic Services. I said, wow, it's 5.5 hours to get to Meridian and it's 5.5 hours to get back. That's 11 hours. I was like, what time did this motherfucker wake up? Of course he didn't have any body cam on. But I said, what time did he wake up to get these items over there on the 28th? Because then he had to get back to finish up and write his report by noon. It was 12:10 and 23 seconds that he wrote this report. And it was reviewed on Monday, November 28th, within an hour and 15 minutes by Roger Lanier. And I'm like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. This doesn't make any fucking sense. But this is what happens when you don't write your reports. All of this stuff is just so inaccurate. Ridiculous crap. Ridiculous. All this ridiculousness. Anyways, just had to show. Yeah, they were there on Thanksgiving. I'm saying I believe now that we have all the reports and I have the stuff that was turned over in evidence. Okay. Like it was put in on evidence on the 24th. This is so bad. It's just so bad. Like this, it's so sloppy. You can't trust it. You have no idea what to trust. You have no idea what to trust. And I can't, I could never as a juror convict anybody. Just like I would have never been able to convict anybody in obviously the Karen Reed case. I don't even like if anybody was arrested and charged in that case for like killing Officer John O'Keefe, literally without some like phenomenal evidence and basically people turning on each other and saying, okay, hey, yep, I was at the house. They told me to say this, and so I did, but this is really what happened, like stuff like that. It's just one of those things that when the officers that investigate the case mess it up so bad, it's just not prosecuting. It's not prosecutable. You just can't prosecute because I wouldn't be able to charge anybody, or like I wouldn't be able to find anybody guilty. The cops can charge whatever they want, but the evidence is the evidence. If the investigation is shit, it's going to be shit for anybody that you have as a defendant. That's just the bottom line. And if you try to change that philosophy, then you're biased. Because that should never change. It's just what it is. You can still have nothing be fruit of the poisonous tree, and it still be like there could be no fruit of the poisonous tree and anybody violating that. This is sloppy work. They don't even have their reports right. They don't have any dates right. Stuff's not being collected. You guys saw body cam how it was just trampled through. These kids deserved way better than what happened. And you're taught this like day one. It doesn't matter if it would have been somebody stole a car and you come across the car and it's in some parking lot. You don't seal off the car and then let all of your officers that are watching the car until the crime scene unit gets there to process it, the forensics team. You don't then all of the people that are watching the car to make sure that nobody messes with it, that they're in it going through it. That's the equivalent of what we saw with the body cams of 111 of King Road. And so the argument can't be made that, oh, this is a homicide. They didn't know what they were doing. No, this is any case. It's the same. That's why you have to give an analogy like that to say, hey, let's say that somebody stole somebody's car and then you find the car that's, be on the lookout. Oh, here we found this car. Okay, great. Now, in order to find out who stole this car, we're going to see if we can get some prints, right? Yeah. So leave the car alone. You don't get in it. And then you're letting the people come so they can process the vehicle. Can you imagine if the people that were waiting for the forensics team to get there were just sifting through the car, and going through it and looking through and looking through stuff and looking underneath the mat and going in and then going through the glove compartment. And I mean, that's the equivalent to this. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Nothing needed to be relayed to anybody. Oh, hey, so-and-so told me to go through and give them an update. Give them an update on what the 2 dead bodies that are in the downstairs room and the 2 dead. Give you what type of an update? What are you talking about? There's no update to give. And Tyson Barrett or whoever was asking these people to go in and relay any type of information to people, that's absurd. That's absolutely crazy. That's crazy talk. That's not best practice. You don't have to relay anything. There's nothing to relay. All that is that's misinformation. What is he going to tell you? Yep, they're still dead. Nobody moved. Truthfully, what is the person going to go tell you that you want information from? Nothing. Then that's not how they would have been trained. And if you were trained that way, then you're an idiot. The person that trains you is an idiot. And I can't believe that Gary Tolson's training people at Post. This is just horrible. This is so pathetic. And I think it's interesting that mainstream media won't talk about this case anymore. Why not?
Every fifth episode will be a time capsule episode.
They went hard for John Showalter here. They went hard for him. I can't believe it. They went hard for Jack D.
Moscow, Idaho. What is a person of interest? Always the closest people to a victim become a person of interest, and they do so for many reasons. Moscow, Idaho, home to the University of Idaho. 11,000 students, 25,000 residents.
Thing that we have that we just as soon as we can, because that's how we can.
This is the press conference from November 20th, 2022.
Please rely on official sources of information, and please be patient. I understand that everybody wishes that this was solved already, but these things take time. It takes time to work through. You heard the stats of all the tips and everything, the interviews and everything that's been done. This takes time for our investigators to work through. So please be patient as we work through this investigation.
Exactly. Things do take time. So how are you or anybody clearing or publicly stating that certain people aren't involved? How is the police department in a position?
You guys, this was on 11/20, the same day that they decided they were going to employ IGG. These things take time. No, they didn't. That's all bullshit. You don't go employ IGG quietly and tell everybody to go off grid if these things take time and you're actually documenting and stuff because you want to prosecute a case down the road. Can you just believe what was being fed to us? And there's 4 people that were murdered, and people are making some of the stuff political. You would have thought right there that guy right there, he had something to do with this case, that he investigated this case, that he was making decisions in this case. Why is he speaking? He had nothing to do with this case. Willis? It's like the Delphi case. You know, what's with people when you want to talk about using stuff for political reasons? I mean, what I mean by that is you want to put your face on something and it's like, because you want to say one day, yeah, look at that. We got that guy. Well, it's funny because now Idaho State Police is running from everything. We're putting in FOIA requests and they're acting like they don't have things. Well, yeah, we know that you do. That's fine. We'll get it. But I love the answers back. I love what you guys are writing to us.
State these things in a press conference that was conducted on 11/20/2022.
This time I'd like to introduce the University of Idaho President Scott Green. Scott Green, President, University of Idaho. Last name spelled Green, like the color. First, we continue to extend our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of the victims. As stated earlier, we want justice and appreciate the increased resources from the Idaho State Police and FBI that have been brought to bear on this crime. We fully appreciate and share the frustration of our students, employees, parents, and community members who continue to push for answers. While we wait for answers in the investigation, we've ramped up our security safety practices and are listening to students and supporting them in any way possible. The University of Idaho's primary focus now is on supporting our students and working to meet their varied needs. The police continue to inform us that they believe this was a targeted attack, but we recognize this is not good enough for some of our students who will want to complete their semester remotely until the person who committed the crime is in custody. We are also hearing that some students want to be back on campus and in Moscow because they gain comfort from the structure of classes and being with their friends and professors. All reactions and feelings are valid, and we all process these tragedies differently. We're asking instructors to plan for both sets of students as we finish the semester. We will be communicating decisions early this week so that families can discuss and plan their individual response over the Thanksgiving break. We learned a lot during COVID, and we have many course delivery options our faculty can deploy to meet student needs. Student and employee safety remain our priority. We have increased security patrols on campus since we were notified of this off-campus incident. We have also benefited from increased Idaho State Police presence on our campus, which we are grateful for.
University of Idaho president, what did you learn from that speech? If you were a student, what would you have gained from that? What do you mean off campus? Yeah, off campus. Okay, if that makes you feel better, dude. Hey, this was an off-campus incident, guys. But the university has nothing to do. It was the Greek life students that were murdered. Okay, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Looking back at this, unbelievable.
I'm Ted Williams, Fox News.
God, I miss Ted Williams. Ted Williams, get back up there and do a little shimmy.
You all have said that these killings are targeted. Can you share with us why you believe they are targeted killings? And do you know who, if any, of the victims were the actual targets of the killings?
As we stated earlier in the previous press release or press conference, we believe they're targeted because we take the totality of all the circumstances that we're looking at. Do we know any one person that it was targeted? We're not yet able to say it.
Okay. Basically, guys, why they think it was targeted is because there was two other people that were in the home that were not harmed, and Dylan Mortensen saying that she saw the victim or that she saw the perpetrator, and the perpetrator saw her and she was not harmed. That is when you would get the totality of what they knew at that time. So now we have their investigation, basically, right? And they said this on day one. What they were hearing is that Dylan Mortensen saw the killer, and the killer saw her, and they didn't do anything to her. And she was there, and so it was an isolated, targeted attack. And I can't believe that the parents like if they would have, we didn't know that at the time. Like the public, the parents, you're telling me the parents didn't know that at the time? If I would have known, like if I would have heard that, knew that back then, there is no way that I would know like that's why they're calling it an isolated targeted attack, because of what Dylan Mortensen said, which is I saw him. He saw me. He didn't do anything to me. And he would have had to have heard me because I'm calling out their names. I'm texting them. I'm calling them. I'm calling out their names. I'm calling their phones. This person saw me. I saw them. And I was calling them and calling out their names, and this person would have heard that. And then if you actually look at the phone records, that actually all happens after the 420 and 40-second car speeds away, for the record. Also, when Dylan Mortensen said that from the time that she heard someone's here to the time that she saw the man, it was 10 to 20 minutes. And yet Detective Gilbertson goes, and within a week, on 11/21, within a week of the murders, he is doing, on 11/21, he is doing a stealth, hey, you're going to count for me, and I'm going to see if I can get in, get out, and how many stab wounds each person has suffered, and how quickly I can do this. Why? Well, because of the evidence, because of your eyewitness. But I'm over here like, wait, why though? Your eyewitness says that by the time someone's here, to seeing him is 10 to 20 minutes. Why do you have to get in and out within a minute and 30 to 3 minutes? Oh. 111 to camera. Because otherwise it's total reasonable doubt than what Ann Taylor could then use. She'll be able to use all of that. As if you're not going to say that the killer's in that vehicle, then Ann Taylor's going to be able to say that, yeah, whoever is in that vehicle did it. Just like you have to say that the killer's vehicle is all the times that it was circling. Because if you don't, then Ann Taylor's going to be able to say that. What about all these other circling cars? Well, we're able to say that's like, why aren't we using phone records? Okay. Why aren't we able to say that that's not somebody's car? Because we've determined in this area, we've contacted all of these people that their phones were pinging in that area at that time. Okay. And none of them have that type of vehicle. None of them saying that they were up. You know, like you could eliminate if they truly wanted to do like detective hardcore work. If you have that geofence up, you go to town. But that should be part of it. It was never part of it. And then we get over here to Molly. How was Molly's name and the other number that was in the geofence, besides Molly's number, how does Molly's name stay out of all of this? How does that happen? Everything that was leaking in this case, but the one thing that just has, oh, she was at the wrong place at the wrong time, has nothing to do with anything. Molly doesn't get leaked. Wow. That's when you know that law enforcement's the leak, because they knew what they needed to keep quiet, and they did. Because Molly blows up their spot. Pullman.
At this point in time, due to our investigation, but we still believe that. But we, like I said, we take a totality of everything.
Exactly. You take a totality, and you did not have that on 11/20/2022. Next up, same presser, 11/20/2022. This was a very vague question, but she hits home on some very good points.
Hi, Christina Corbin with Fox News. The male subject whom the women called, has he been ruled out as a suspect or person of interest?
Everything that we have taken from those calls, we have followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there. We have followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there. Followed up on, we've cleared, and we believe that there's no connection there.
Which calls? What has no connection? See, it's a very vague question, so therefore he's able to answer it and be just as vague. You know, what about text? Snapchat, Facebook Messenger app. There's an answer, boss. But listen closely to what question.
Gotti Schwartz, NBC News. Just following up on the 911 call, you said that you don't believe that's the killer. Can you conclusively rule out the person that called 911 from inside the home as a suspect in this case?
Can you go ahead and just ask that one more time, please?
The person that was inside the home that called 911, that was not one of the roommates. Can you conclusively rule that person out as a suspect at this point?
I don't think I said that it wasn't one of the roommates. I said that it was used with the roommate's phone.
I believe somebody asked if that was the killer, and you said no.
No, that's correct. So will you clarify that for me?
We're not confirming a roommate called 911, but used the roommate's phone. So was there someone else at the home other than those two roommates?
There was other friends that had arrived at the location.
How many?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure at this time, to be quite honest.
So on 11/20/2022, they have ruled people out, but they don't know how many people were in the home during the 911 call. This makes complete sense, said no one ever. But that was not even what frazzled the police chief. Check this out.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community safe.
The location of the suspect? The way that the police chief is speaking right here, it's almost like they are trying to find someone. They're trying to locate someone. The only way you could, quote unquote, rule someone out and speak that way, these officers that did this presser, you have to have the evidence that leads to a different person of interest because of the evidence that you have. That's how you'd be ruling people out.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual. And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep our community safe.
Again, listen one more time. This is all about the location of somebody.
Do you guys have any idea if the killer's still within the community, or are you looking outside the community for the killer in terms of their physical location?
We are looking everywhere that evidence would lead us. I can't say if the person's here. I can't say what community the person's in. We're utilizing every resource we can to make that location of that individual.
This person of interest?
And part of that is the safety of our community is paramount, and that's why we brought in the resource that we brought in to keep.
So if we think about everything, this was on 11/20, right? 11/19, you go back to Tyson Barrett's stuff. Tyson Barrett on 11/19, okay. And 11/18, what I've always said is, I'm going to prove that they had his name by 11/18. Well, 11/19, what I just showed you guys a little bit ago was Tyson Barrett's typed up 7-month late report that they're looking for a white Honda Elantra already. And off of what though? Because I showed you then the FBI reports, and on 11/19, 11/21, the actual expert is saying, whatever you guys have supplied me with here, this balcony video, yeah, nothing can be ascertained from this. Like nothing. I can't even enter this. So what information did Tyson Barrett go off of when he's emailing campus and trying to get, hey, I want any tickets that were wrote up and any parking passes that were given out for white Honda Elantras? Come on, man. Ann Taylor was on to them. Ann Taylor knew it. Why can't the real reason be said on how they got to Brian Kohlberger? Is it because the parents could sue the living shit out of these two big ass organizations, these two schools? How about the counties? How about a task force? How about, it makes it really seem, I mean, wow. Wow. I just would love to know what they did on the 15th, on 11/15, because they have the roommates talked to on 11/13. Then the 14th, 15th, like what's Blaker and Payne doing on the 14th, 15th? What's Mowry doing? Like nobody can write anything up, do anything. 14th and 15th. 16th, they have their presser, and they're going to actually they actually say we're having the autopsies are later on that day. Danny Vargas and people from Idaho State Police, and they attend that. What was Blaker and Payne doing on 11, 14th, 15th? You guys were at the scene for a little bit.
keep our community.
Brought in the resources that we did because of their location. So who really did law enforcement clear on 11/20/2022? Jack D. That's who, the long-term boyfriend of Kaylee. John Jack Showalter, what about him? You know, the hoodie guy? Was his location Moscow, Idaho at the time of the murders? You know, he was lurking around prior to the two girls being murdered. Can you give us his geolocation around 3 a.m. that night?
And when I say us, like themselves,
The
can they
food
answer
truck
that?
video legit.
And so they would have to wait till they get the geolocation warrant back. And none of that stuff came back until the 18th. That the geolocation warrant didn't come back until the 18th. Think about all this. Like, you can only, when you lay it all out on what did they even have available to go off of, and the only thing that you had truly available was anybody who had just given them their cell phones on the 13th, okay, and then CIs.
Surfaces, and within a day, law enforcement says that that guy is not Jack D, and that he was just a friend making sure that the girls got home safe. How did law enforcement
I meant to put Jack S there, by the way. But remember this is what they were telling us. Meanwhile, they put out a 7 to 8 person team on December 3rd and 4th following Jack S all over. You want to know why? Because that's what the Idaho State Police were doing. The Idaho State Police, who weren't in the know with or they were, and it's like, hey, we have to make it seem like we're investigating. It's bizarre because nobody's talking to anybody. Like, who gave the call to go and put a 7-man team and follow Jack Showalter around on December 3rd and 4th? On 11/17, Pullman Police Department gets involved that we know of on paper. Don't you think that Blaker, who's been in the game since for 20 some years, has connections with people in Pullman that are also cops? Don't you think they work together? Don't you think that that would have been the first call that anybody that would be a veteran would be like, hey, buddy, I may need your help on some of the stuff that we're dealing with this, you know. I bet you your campus is just as much as like a pool for us of who could have done this than, you know, just as our campus, you know, especially if the BAU's coming through saying it's going to be a male in the ages of this to this. I mean, they made up some maintenance ass shit to get into Jack Showalter's apartment. I'd love to ask Jack Showalter one question, which is, when did you put in your quality water control complaint that you wanted somebody to come by and check out the water? I just want to know the date of that. What was the date of that? Is it Miss Potts' birthday today? Is that what I saw on here? Is that what I saw? Katie, thank you so much. Deborah. Man, we had a sad night, didn't we? Do you guys know about that? About Jack Showalter's 7-person detail? It's like when they did the detail on Chris Watts. It was really just, I was reading it. I was like, damn. They put 7 people. Definitely not. I just want everybody to say happy birthday to you. It's 2:06 p.m. Here, let me read you guys something. This is the Jack Showalter, like, hold on, okay. Let's see. It was Oh, here. Let's see. It's December 3rd and 4th. Mm-mm. Okay, got it. All right, here we go. I just couldn't believe this when I saw this. They've had, it's like 7 dudes. Take a look. Surveillance. SURV is surveillance. Okay, and this is what day? That's the 5th. They do. Okay, this is the first one. All right. So, on December 3rd, 2022, Idaho State Police detectives conducted surveillance at blank in Boise, Ada County, Idaho. The surveillance operation was conducted on a potential homicide suspect identified as blank, blank, blank. Like first, middle, last. At approximately 11:55 p.m., surveillance units set up around the residence. Idaho State Police Detective, this person, so I counted like there's one, observed 3 vehicles parked at the residence. The following vehicles were observed: a silver blank, a white blank, and a silver blank. All Idaho license plates and registered to in Boise. At approximately 5:43 p.m., Detective Pohanka observed an individual believed to be blank leave his residence in the silver. And then I said to myself, It's like, damn. And I think part of me believes that they're using it and saying like John Jack Showalter, and that's why it's like longer for a first name. I don't know. But at the end, this is who I believe it is. At the end of the day, they go and they see him. Okay, so this individual, he's in a silver car. He took multiple routes in random manner. The routes ultimately took surveillance units in multiple circles around the Boise area. At approximately 6:32 p.m., Detective Pohanka observes blank return to his house on blank drive. At approximately 8:11 p.m., Pohanka observes an individual believed to be blank leave the residence. Surveillance units, plural, followed blank to a blank gas station located at blank in Boise, Idaho. Idaho State Police Detective Sergeant Cortez observed what appeared to be blank, this person, go into the gas station. At approximately 8:23, blank left the gas station and drove to a residence near blank street in Boise and parked on the street. Blank did not get out of the vehicle. At approximately 8:30, Sergeant D. Cortez observed an individual get into the blank with blank and leave together. At approximately 8:36 p.m., blank and his passenger arrived back at the same gas station. Like, what? Sergeant Cortez observed blank and the passenger exit the vehicle and go into the gas station. At approximately 8:41 p.m., blank and his passenger left the gas station. At approximately 8:46 p.m., surveillance units followed blank to an apartment complex near the intersection of blank and Boise. All occupants of the vehicle got out and went into the complex. Well, how many occupants were there? At about 9:30, surveillance ended. What? Then, on December 4th, the Idaho State Police detectives set up surveillance on blank, Boise, Idaho. At approximately 3:44 p.m., Detective Pohanka observed an individual believed to be blank leave with his mom in the blank blank. Surveillance units followed them to the blank located at blank. Idaho State Police Detective Sergeant Hopkins followed blank inside and attempted to positively identify him. Detective T. Hopkins identified someone who looked like blank, but later was identified to be blank, blank's brother. Oh my God. Dude, what? Like, what? Why is the name of the gas station blank? I know. Everything's blankety blank blank blank. Is it Meg P? Is it your birthday? Whose birthday is it today? Okay. I just want to give a shout out of today's your birthday. Blankety blank blank blank. Okay. Blankety blank blank blank. Okay, so back to my blankety blanks. Okay, so this guy attempts to try to identify, then he realizes, wait, it's his brother. So they are so good at their job. So you're following the wrong person. At approximately 4:17 p.m., Blank and his mother arrived back at their house. Who? I thought you just said it was the brother. Anyways, at approximately 4:58 p.m., Idaho State Police Trooper, now we got Weinstein, observed an individual appearing to resemble Blank leave the residence in the silver Blank. Detectives, plural, followed the vehicle to the Blank gas station. I mean, does all this person do is go to the gas station located at Blank in Boise, Idaho, and watch Blank pump gas into the vehicle? Detectives followed Blank towards the Boise St. Luke's. Okay. Blank eventually turned up Warm Springs, where detectives eventually lost sight of him. What? I was like, what? How do you lose sight of somebody? What are they doing? What? Detective Sergeant Hoxie eventually found Blank and observed he had a passenger with him. What? At what time did he eventually, find him? Well, at approximately 5:28 p.m., Blank arrived at Blank, where Sergeant D. Cortez observed a male get into the vehicle. At approximately 5:31 p.m., the vehicle left and arrived at the parking lot behind Blank, located at Blank by Boise, Idaho. Sergeant D. Cortez observed everyone exit the vehicle, and they went inside the gas station. Another gas station? At approximately 5:44 p.m., everyone got back into the vehicle and left the gas station. At approximately 5:48 p.m., detectives followed Blank to a house located at Blank in Boise, Idaho, where all occupants went inside. At approximately 7:30 p.m., surveillance ended. Excuse me? What? What did they do? Who are these people? There's got to be pictures. You do not do surveillance and not take pictures of all of these people. What is this for? What is this for? What surveillance? Who are these people? And who goes to the gas station? Like, I mean, it sounds like someone's a smoker. I don't know. Anyways, then I'm like, geez, what? And I was like, you know what? Something doesn't smell right about this. Let's see who all was involved in this. So I'm like trying to figure out, like, where are you listing everybody that was involved? Like, who all went? And is like, who's this Brandon? So like this Brandon Rowley guy, he wrote the report. And then on this day, wait, which one's that one? Wait, there's another one. Is it all on one? Okay, yeah, because they did the December 4th one. Okay. So I counted all these people that were involved. I think there's another one. Let me see. Oh. Jesus. Remember I told you about that Rich Alderson guy, right? And he messes it up the way he talks about that his name. One of the guys is like Ralderson. This stuff's crazy. On November 26th. Okay, so this is Idaho State Police District 5. Like, they had all of this is wild. Oh, somebody spoofed, I think, Dylan or Bethany's phone, by the way. I was looking at that again. So this on November 26th, Detective Mark Hewlett spoke with blank. The phone call occurred around 11 a.m. Blank's phone number is blank. Had submitted a tip regarding a man she had met on Tinder. Blank told me that she had met 2 times with blank or blank. They were fictitious names at her apartment in Spokane, Washington. Blank advised that both meetings were short in duration. Blank advised that the male she had met with was the same male as the male in the photos that she had submitted with her tip. I'm like, where is this tip? Blank advised that apart from her tip, she didn't have any further information that wasn't mentioned. I asked Blank if she believed that the male could have some behavioral or mental issues. This girl told me that the male seemed very sound and very intelligent. Blank advised that the last time she had met with the male was Tuesday, November 22nd. Kelly advised that the male had told her that he owned, so then we find out this name is Kelly. And usually they put the last name in there. Kelly advised that the male had told her that he owns blank, 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 blank. Note, incident 2170 was the tip that Spokane police officer Addix called in regarding blank after he spoke with her. What? I advised Detective Schwacky of this information, and these instances at my level are closed, and further interviews will take place in person. The original tip papers from the above tips were left with the Idaho State Police Detective Jake Schwacky. The tip papers contained Blank's personal information. Detective Schwacky advised that the tip papers would be passed to the in-person interviewer. And it's like, who? Who are these people? Another Idaho 5 district person, same dude. I'm just thinking, like, why are these people involved? Anyways, none of this shit has anything to do with anything. So when you just, like, look back at all this stuff, you're just like, damn. How is this stuff making the paperwork? You know? But when I read these reports, sometimes I just go, God, they make no sense. Gosh. I was looking for updates on Murphy. I always love when Jack D posts updates about Murphy. Those are like my favorite updates to look forward to. So I wonder if maybe we'll see a Murphy update. Yeah. If anybody sees one, let me know. Send it my way. Yeah, I think Cyray's doing a class. I think his class actually kicks off tomorrow. But yes, I have the drone footage. So what'd you guys gather from that surveillance? Part of it, I think it's not Jack Showalter. Why do I have a crazy funny feeling that it doesn't have to do with them? But it's somebody that lived in Boise. Anybody? Well, what I got from is that they are not good at it. Very true statement. I just don't. Why did they end the surveillance? Like, what was the point of it? What was the point of that surveillance? Why did they end it at 7:22? Why did the other one end it at like, what the hell is going on? Someone leaving with their mom for gas runs. Then how do you mix up if, like, oh, that must have been his brother? What? They look that alike? to see if his car looks tan on the light streets. Maybe. You know, I've been reading all the Delphi new drops because I'm gonna cover that here soon. And with all these eyewitnesses, right? Jerry Holman gets asked a really important question, which is during one of his depositions to say, "Hey, so why didn't you fire up a lineup and show all these eyewitnesses, all like different, give them a lineup?" And he said, "Well, so much time had passed." You know, and basically Rosie comes back and it's like, "Well, it would have been really, we can admit that it would have been really bad for your case if the eyewitnesses don't pick him, right?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it would have been awful." And then Rosie's like, "Well, don't you think it was a pretty memorable day? These people gave you like, they did you know, the portraits. They did the they got with the sketch artist, right?" I'm shocked that the police didn't ask Dylan or Bethany at any point in time, or just like, here, give a lineup, see if they pick him out, type of thing with Brian. I mean, I don't know. It's the year of the bushy brows. But yeah, they never asked Dylan or Bethany anything about like, "Hey, do you know this name? Hey, have you ever, you know, do any of these people look familiar?" Mm-mm-mm. They didn't want to know these answers. They were just not going to be. They want the answers. They just know that those two people aren't going to be able to provide those answers. I don't know. You know, then I look at some stuff where they're, for example, when they go back in and they want to go back into this house all this time and like get, like, why did you want to take stuff off of Dylan or Bethany's vanity set? Let's go get those beers. Let's go get those beers. And then I noticed that, wow, you went and got the beers on December 3rd, but you don't put any of that stuff into evidence until the 12th. Like, where were these items just chilling? I get it. There's a temporary evidence locker. I understand that. But what? Not when the guy's filling out his paperwork saying that he handed it to Tim Small, whatever. They go back in on December 3rd to go get stuff from Bethany's room and stuff that was on the stairs leading up to the first or the second level. You clearly want those for a reason, right? And then I was going back over, you know, when they decided that they were going to contract and clean up the house. Guys, go back and look at those dates, man. Those dates are just so telling. You had your guy. You had your guy. You're not going to say, "Hey, we're going to bring people in here and clean up this crime scene." Okay. And start giving items back that are in that house to people. Like, even like they were literally in there trying to like walk around and see what didn't have blood on it that you could give back to Xana's family. You know, I don't know. I would love to see any of the emails that we're going through and seeing if these parents were like, "Hey, where's our kids' stuff?" like every other day. You know, there's stuff that starts happening on 11:20, 11:30. And then here, how about this? Anybody know who Aubrey Scott is? Anybody? AS. Aubrey Scott. Oh, remember I was telling you I was looking for that Natalie Fitzgerald? No, I found what I was looking for. It's Kennedy Fitzgerald. KF. The K stands for Kennedy Fitzgerald. So when I was telling you about the KS or the KF person, and I was like, remember, it's not Kane, whatever. It's Kennedy Fitzgerald. That her house is the tree house peeps. And then there's like, these are just the people that have different account of what Bethany and Dylan were saying. You know, Rich Batanti interview with Ava Wood. Rich Batanti interview with Braden Powell. Rich Batanti interview with Braden, but spelled a different way, Jensen. I want to know if that's Susie Jensen, any relation to Susie Jensen, who's a judge in Sandpoint area. Rich Batanti interview with Bethany Funk. Where is that interview? Right? I want that interview. Rich Batanti. The interview with Bethany Funk in March. Where's that interview? Rich Batanti interview with Kennedy Fitzgerald. And I'm telling you, the Fitzgerald girl blows up whatever the heck Bethany or Dylan were talking about. My friend had a bar. His name of his bar was Scoundrels. Shit you not. I haven't seen that name forever. Scoundrels. So all right, guys, I'll be back a little bit later. Aubrey is the spelling is Aubrey. I'll be back a little bit later. I got to take a phone call for my bell. I'm on a deep dive mission to bring us the latest and the greatest in the Motorola body cam stuff and the latest and the greatest in the with everything to do with the bell. So we got to get to the bottom of what are you capable of doing? Because like Michael Proctor did with the Karen Reed case, he's hitting a dead switch, right? Because it's like, hey man, these are GPS. So if you think that I can just go and do whatever, right? Well, Ted Daniels went and got to the bottom of the fact that Michael Proctor, right, hit the kill switch. And it showed that he only drove 8 seconds this one day. He clearly was down at the Cape and doing whatever. So I'm getting as much information I can and then going to put in a pretty explosive request here because but we need the information from the church about one last thing. So is it Green Banana's birthday? Green Banana 77? Are you Green Banana 78 now? Or is that just like the year that you graduated? Oh, the Spitfire Dragon. Thank you. So, but we're going to get to the bottom of a couple things and then we can ask a couple hard questions that are going to come the ways of officers. If there's nothing to hide, they should be able to answer some of these questions. Because the big thing I want to put out though too is like, I just think they should show the backing up of the vehicles, that not any of the bodies coming out, but just they're there, here. And I just want these people to shut up about that. That really bothers me. I just think it's, ugh. Shout out to Kevin from South Boston. # you wrong. That case is getting wild. I gotta do a Karen Reed Turtle Boy update. They got a lot of wild stuff going on over there. I think Karen Reed's case though is proof that cops do whatever the fuck they want, and they're all covering for each other. So if it can happen there, why can't it happen here? I proved that it happened in the Dan Moore case, and it's the same people in this case. So tell me how you think character changes in a year. It doesn't. If you're a shitbag, you're a shitbag. And once they already have blackmail on you, that's what they all do to each other. They all blackmail each other. Once somebody has something on you, then you get in line real quick. So, all right, guys. We will see you on the next one a little bit later today. And I can't believe it's been 3 years. So keep Tommy Jude's family in your prayers as well. Ugh. But he knows now. He's laughing at all of us saying, haha, I told you I'd find out first. And he did. Not the way that I wanted him to, but hopefully he's with his son. All right, guys, on the next one. Peace out. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.